تشاشي عمي وفر خيدو عصري تسوايتي أعراض الدنيا وأخذك تكمل تقمي سوالونك أريضا وطينو من اللازم تيمو أريضا وطينو من اللازم تيمو أرض الناس تشاشي عمي وفر خيدو أفريد سوايتي مهران الدنيا وأخذك تجمع تجمع سوالونك أريقا وفينو للا سنطيمو شيكي ودان زيقوا عشي غاروا عشي عند الغرف نعوي الفوايد شو عسي صار مشيكي ودان زيقوا عشي غاروا عشي عند الغرف نعوي الفوايد شو عسي طريقة مواطنون للا زال في مراد طريقة مواطنون للا زال في مراد شك شك دهري خاري شارب وقار ويتجيد تفكير شك درب راحة شك 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 دهري خاري شارب وقار ويتجيد تفكير أريد أقوى للا ثاني مرا أريد أقوى للا ثاني مرا أريد أقوى للا ثاني مرا
Okay, welcome to the Karaite Torah study. I am your tour guide in the study, Hakham Melech ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im. That was a famous Moroccan song. Gari Tamach Ino, actually a famous Berber song from I think the Rif Mountains area. For anyone who knows me, they know that I've been to Morocco a bunch of times. I've been there 5 times to be exact. I've spent about a year of my life in Morocco, and a number of those times for extended periods of times. So twice, I spent 3 months in Morocco for a total of 6 months, and then another 3 times, adding up to about, maybe 3 times it was? No, I'm trying to think. No, and then another 3 times, adding up to about a year total. And actually, on a number of occasions, I was seriously considering moving to Morocco. So I love Moroccan music. I love Moroccan culture. I have a bunch of Moroccan friends, Muslims, and if I weren't Jewish, I'd probably end up in Morocco because I absolutely love it there. Okay, that being said, I spent most of my time, by the way, in Marrakesh, but I've been all over the country. I've been in just about every major city in the country, some of them multiple times, and I just love it there. It's unfortunate to me that there's so many problems in that country. All of my Moroccan friends, they hate it. They can't stand it. They want to get out. They're dealing with poverty. They're dealing with I don't know. Usually they just mention poverty. They all want to go to the West. They all want to go to the United States of America. Their big dream is to get out of Morocco and live in Europe or live in America. But I guess that's a common dream. But I guess me coming from the West and realizing what a disaster it is, and continues to fall. I just love being in Morocco. Although I must say that if I ended up living there full time, then or let's put it this way, knowing my friends who were born and raised there, I know how much they have to struggle with money. I mean, poverty really is a big problem in Morocco. People get very, very low salaries, like 100 dirham a day, which comes out to about $10 a day, I think is kind of the average minimum wage salary. And things are cheaper there, but it's not such an easy life for the people who were born and raised there. So they're all looking to, escape, or most of them are. Anyway, that's that. So, but that being said, I absolutely loved my time in Morocco. I guess I had the privilege of coming from a Western country and, being there as kind of a tourist, although as I said, I was a little bit more than a tourist because I was there for extended periods of time. But essentially, I didn't have to deal with the same day-to-day problems that people who were born and raised there have to deal with. So I guess in that sense, I had a little bit of a advantage or privilege in seeing the country. But I absolutely loved it there, and still love it there, and hope to go back soon. Actually, I have a Moroccan friend of mine, who's supposed to get married soon, and if possible, I'll go back there and attend his wedding up in a small village up in the Atlas Mountains. So, all right. That being said, I should also mention that through my time in Morocco, or even before, I gained a really great respect for Islam, to the point that I actually I consider Islam to be far closer to the Torah than certainly Christianity is. And in some ways, it's far closer to the Torah than even rabbinical Judaism is, because it keeps a more, I guess you would say, straightforward or version of parts of the Torah at any rate. Okay, so that being said, here we are. This is Melech Ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and we are in Parashat Ki Tisa. If you're listening on Facebook or on YouTube, then really the best way to join the discussion, and I really like to have a discussion rather than just a one-sided lecture, although most people don't tune in on the Streamyard, but if you follow the Streamyard links, that's the best way. In fact, maybe I'll just post them for a second. I will post a Streamyard link. So if you want to join in on the discussion rather than just be a passive listener, then your best bet is to follow this link. Okay, I posted it in the comments there. I hope you can see it. Alrighty, and let me just do one more administrative task here. It'll take just a second, and I'm just going to inform on the WhatsApp group that the study is starting. So a second here. Okay, so that's that. Okie dokie. So here we go. So we are in Parashat Ki Tisa. We read through this morning, and really the Parsha is kind of broken into two. It's bifurcated into two main subjects. The first is the finishing up of the Mishkan. So we have the altar incense, the atonement money, the bronze basin, the anointing oil, etc. And then the second part is the golden calf, the story of the golden calf. So we were looking at the story of the golden calf, and I think we'll continue there for now, and maybe if we can, we'll get back to the issues dealing with the rest of the issues dealing with the Mishkan. And we saw something, very interesting, that basically the Israelites were kind of freaked out, for lack of a better word, that Moshe had seemingly disappeared off into the ether. He went up into the mountain, into the cloud, and he's been up there for 40 days, or maybe not yet 40 days, but he's been up there for a while, and nobody knows what the heck happened to this Moshe guy. And so they're freaking out, and they're like abandoned in the desert, right? And they have no idea what's going on and who's leading them, and they're kind of still freaked out from the whole Egypt thing, I guess, which had only occurred a couple of months before. And so they want a new leader, and they need a god to lead them. So they make a god, and that god is made out of a masecha. Masecha, we saw, is related to the underlying root nesech, which means to pour out. Like you can have a nesech is a libation offering, okay, meaning that it's wine that's ordered, that is given with other sacrifices or other offerings on the altar. So masecha would be a molded or molten egel, is a baby cow, a calf, okay, specifically a baby male cow is an egel. So they made this molten calf from the gold earrings which were on their wives, sons, and daughters' ears. And we saw that apparently the sons also wore gold earrings, so it's not just a 1980s teenager kind of thing, that even ancient Israelite boys and girls and boys wore earrings in their ears. And this is what was used to make the golden calf. We also saw that we have the word bacheret. Cheret is somehow related to what's the word in English? It's escaping me right now. Not carving, but let me just see what it says here. Engraving. That's the word I'm looking for. So engraving. So how can it be both molded and engraved, or used with an engraving tool, or an engraving tool used upon it? So maybe it was cast into the shape of a golden calf first, and then maybe there was some kind of engraving that was done on it. Who knows? It's all speculation. The commentaries don't even know, as is very often the case. They're just rendering their various opinions. But somehow or another, it was cast. It was melted down and cast into the shape of a calf, and then maybe something was engraved on it. At any rate, we then see that when Aharon and when the Israelites are referring to this golden calf, they call it Elohim, but they use the plural verbs associated with the subject Elohim. So Elohim, when it's referring to God, to our one and only God, Yehovah, we will also see the word Elohim. But then, if we have a verb that's associated with it, the verb will appear will be in the singular form rather than the plural form. So it would be like Elohim Oseh or Elohim Asa, for example, V'yomar Elohim. Okay, and so therefore we understand that when Elohim is used in reference to our God, to Yehovah, that is it's the same word. It's a plural word, but it's what would be called the royal plural. That the plural represents a royal. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. It represents an honorary way, or a way of honoring by using the plural, but it's actually referring to a single God. Well, here we have the word Elohim, and the verbs that are associated with it are in the plural. So Elohim is not our God or only God, it's meant as gods. And we see that here in verse 4. So let's read verse 4. This is Exodus chapter 32, verse 4. And let me share the screen correctly. Let's see here. Just give me a second. There we go. So if we start 4, we see Vayikach mi'adam v'yitzar oto b'cheret v'ya'asehu egel masecha v'yomru ela Elohecha Yisrael. So the Israel said of the land. So here we have these, okay? Elohecha, you are God, Israel, which they, so the third person, perfect plural, okay? Which brought you God about Yehovah, who brought us out of the land of Egypt. It would say here, Elcha me'eretz Mitzrayim, but it says Elucha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Okay, who brought you out? Plural, brought you out of the land of Egypt. So there's no mistaking here that the Israelites and Aaron considered this multiple gods, or considered this basically considered this an idol. Okay, even though there only seems to be one egel. Okay. Any rate, and Aaron saw, and he built an altar before the golden, the egel, the lifanav, before it or before him is referring to the egel. And he said, there will be a holiday for Yehovah tomorrow. So this is very strange. Okay. And the next day, the people got up, the people of Israel got up, or awoken, and they brought burnt offerings, and they brought peace offerings, and they sat down to eat and drink. In other words, they had a feast, and then they got up to dance around, to play around. Okay. But this is very strange. So they've built this golden calf, but Aaron says, "Vayomer Hag liYehovah machar." Tomorrow's a holiday to Yehovah. So somehow this golden calf is what's the word I'm looking for? Superimposed with Yehovah. Okay, they are now taking the embodiment of the ineffable, of the God who has no form in this world of space and time, and they're now applying it to this golden calf, or they're now infusing it, or what's the word? Imparting it upon this golden calf. So there seems to be some kind of syncretism going on, right? They're somehow having this festival where they're bringing sacrifices to this golden calf, but nonetheless, Aaron says tomorrow is a hag to Yehovah. They somehow think that this calf is Yehovah. So what's going on there? Do they think that this golden calf is now the embodiment of Yehovah in place of Moshe, who has disappeared off the face of the earth, right? He's just, vanished into thin air from their point of view. They haven't seen him in a month and a half. He disappeared into that cloud. They haven't heard from him since. Or do they think it's another God named Yehovah? Or is it some kind of syncretism, right? Where it's some kind of mix of two gods, one idol and one God. And that brought us to looking into this potsherd, I never know how to pronounce that name. Basically, these fragments that were found in the Sinai Peninsula, which are very famous, found in the place of Kunt Tilet or Ajrud, where there were inscriptions that said Yehovah ve'asherato, which seems somehow to imply that whenever these were written, and they're traced back to about 3,000 years ago, we'll look through the article again, that whoever wrote these things thought of Yehovah as, again, some kind of idol, and perhaps represented a syncretism, a combination of the ineffable God Yehovah with some kind of idol, maybe similar to the golden calf, right? So we see the issue here, right? A golden calf is built. Aaron says tomorrow is a chag to Yehovah, and then they bring sacrifices to this calf, which is Yehovah, apparently, right? Because tomorrow is the chag to Yehovah, and they're bringing sacrifices to this calf, which somehow embodies Yehovah, or is the physical manifestation of Yehovah, as idols were probably were not believed to be the actual gods themselves, although in some cases they probably were, but were meant to somehow represent manifestations of gods that lived up in the sky wherever, or lived on Mount Olympus, or whatever the case may be. So, for instance, if I'm back in the United States, or even wherever I go in the world, if I walk into an Indian restaurant, a lot of times I'll see a statue of an Indian god named Ganesh or Ganesha, right? And he's got, what is it, like a bunch of trunks? What is it again? He's got a bunch of, he's an elephant with a bunch of trunks, and there's literally a statue there of Ganesha, right? And so don't tell anybody, but often when I go to Indian restaurants and nobody's looking, I'll spit in Ganesha's face. Okay, sorry about that. Hope no Hindus are listening, but that's the way I treat idols. At any rate, so I once asked one of these people, do you really believe that this is Ganesha? Do you really believe this is the god Ganesha? This statue right here, you couldn't possibly believe that it's God, right? And the guy said to me, he says, no, I don't really believe that this is a god. I believe that somehow it represents the manifestation of him, or it's a representation of him in the real world. And by bringing offerings to this manifestation, somehow or another, it represents me bringing offerings to the ineffable Ganesha, wherever he lives, God knows where. At any rate, so maybe we have the same thing going on here. So maybe the golden calf, which is an idol, is somehow thought of by the Israelites as a physical manifestation of this, this invisible God known as Yehovah, and that's what's going on. So let's take a look at this article. We started reading it this morning, and we'll look at it again. I'll try to read through. Let's get to the point where, let's get down to over here. Let's read through the whole thing really quickly, okay? So we can get an idea. If you want the link and you want to follow on your own, I will post the link. Okay, so it's posted. And we'll just kind of read through together. You can follow along on your own if you want. And let's see what we can learn from this. Okay, so more than 4 decades after its excavation wound down, a small hill in the Sinai desert continues to bedevil archaeologists. The extraordinary discoveries made at Kuntilet Ad Arud, in other words, otherwise nondescript slope in the northern Sinai, so the Sinai Peninsula, seem to undermine one of the foundations of Judaism as we know it. Then it seems the Lord our God, which was there, we see the actual name on the inscriptions as Yehovah, Yud He Vav He, wasn't one God. He may have even had a wife, going by the completely unique portrait of the Jewish deity that archaeologists found at the site, which may well be the only existing depiction of Yud He Vav He. Kuntilat Ajrud got its name meaning the isolated hill of the water sources from wells at the foot of the hill. It is a remote spot in the heart of the desert, far away from any town and trade route, but for a short time, around 3,000 years ago, so this is what we're talking about, so 1000 BCE, approximately, not long after the giving of the Torah, if the dating is correct, a couple of hundred years, it served as a small way station. Dozens of drawings and inscriptions resembling nothing whatever found anywhere else in our region survived from that period, which seems to have lasted no longer than 2 or 3 decades. Egypt gained the artifacts with the peace treaty with Israel 25 years ago, but the release of the report on the excavation 6 years ago and a book about the site 2 years ago have kept the argument of the exceptional findings from a hill in Sinai alive. And there we have it. There are depictions of the inscriptions right here. We could see, let's see, it's a little bit difficult to read. I think this might be the Yud Hey Wav Hey. No, there it is. Yud Hey Wav Hey is right there, I believe. Okay. Okay. The hill lies 50 kilometers south of Kadesh Barnea and 15 kilometers west. Blah, blah, blah. We can skip ahead a little bit. Okay, we can skip a little bit ahead here. So Meshel, who was one of the archaeologists, an Israeli archaeologist, we'll pick it up here, estimated that it had been occupied very briefly, 25 years at most. Structure-wise, the excavators only found 2 fairly simple, unimpressive structures, meaning buildings. The wonder lay in the drawings and inscriptions. And there's another example, which we'll talk about in just a second. At first, the archaeologists thought that the place was a military fortress. Other fortresses from the First Temple period had been found in the Negev, but no evidence there that there had been a military presence was found. And in the third excavation season, Meshel decided that the structures weren't that sort, meaning they weren't military installations. Nor would Kuntilet for an inn for travelers, blah, blah, blah. We can skip ahead a little bit. So the first hint at the true character of Kuntilet Ajrud was the discovered pottery fragments inscribed with the Hebrew letters Kuf, Resh, Aleph, and Yud. Analysis of the clay from which the pithos, pottery jars, was intriguing. The pots were made of hawar motza, clay only found by Jerusalem. In other words, jars had been made in the area of Jerusalem, which was certainly far away. Among the inscriptions were a blessing and religious texts. That and the origin of the clay suggested to Meshel that the residents were priests and Levites who were supported by tithes collected in the temple in Jerusalem. A word of warning, archaeologists make all kinds of claims and assumptions. They may or may not be correct. If you ever read through, if you have a subscription or read through Biblical Archaeology Review, you know, sometimes you could see assumptions made on the thinnest of evidence. Maybe they'll find, I don't know, a grapevine in Samaria, and they'll say this was the vineyard of Naval or something like that, right? So at any rate, so take everything with a some of these conclusions with a grain of salt, but nonetheless, we'll read through. In line with the spirit of this interpretation, he also interpreted the letters on the dish, Kuf as standing for Kodesh, Kuf Resh as the first 2 letters in the word Korban, and Aleph for Korban Ashram. Okay. The letter Yud, Meshel suggests, may represent a vessel that had been used to continued tithes, though he himself cast doubt on the theory. In First Temple times, they used Egyptian numbers, he points out. All right. Another inscription found there argues that the hill had been peopled by a literate elite and even hints at the presence of a school. One vessel contains the Hebrew alphabet twice, one in the crisp, competent handwriting of a well-trained scribe, and another in what researchers suspect was the hesitant handwriting of a student. If all this is true, what was a small group of priests and Levites doing in the middle of the desert? When King Joash conquered Judah, Meshel thinks the people dwelling at the site were providing an essential service, writing blessings. But from who? For who? The story gets even more complicated when one examines the site through the lens of geopolitics. At the time the hill was occupied, the kingdom of Israel existed in the north, ruled from Samaria. The kingdom of Judah existed in the south, had its capital in Jerusalem. However, the names and inscriptions found at Kuntilat Ajrud seem to be Israelite, not Judahite. It seems to have been Israelite far south of Israel, even to the south of the Judah border. Okay. Why would one kingdom contain a religious site at the far end of another kingdom? Meshel thinks the Israelite presence in or beyond the Judean kingdom and the fact that Jerusalem, the capital of Judah, provisioned this way station of the rival kingdom indicates that at the time the kingdom of Israel was or was turning into a regional power. Judah was a vassal state subject to the more powerful northern kingdom, he thinks. As for why Judahite Jerusalem would provision this Israelite manned hilltop in the middle of nowhere, Meshel suspects it comes down to the Kuntilat Ajrud having been founded by none other than King Yoash of Israel. Again, I think there's a lot of speculation here. The Bible says that war broke out between Amaziah, king of Judah, and Yoash, king of Israel. Thus, the Israelite king Yoash gained control of Judah. It would have been convenient for Yoash to provision Kuntilat Ajrud from the temple in Judah. Why would he have sent up north to bring supplies for it from Israel? Meshel asks rhetorically. If indeed Meshel is right and King Yoash founded the site, he may be the figure drawn on plaster at the entrance of the building. Here's a picture of that figure. So again, it's a lot of speculation here. Okay, reconstruction of what may be the image of King Yoash, possibly the only known contemporary portrait of a Judahite king, found in Kuntilat Ajrud. I think there's a lot of speculation here, as there is unfortunately so much in biblical archaeology, and I think in archaeology in general, because archaeologists are looking to make a name for themselves, and the more sensational they can make their discoveries, then the more of a name they're going to make for themselves. At any rate, let's go on here. Picture of God, and it is that his tail. Kuntilat Ajrud also brought images of animals, humans, and what seems to be gods. The one causing the controversy shows a man and a woman drawn naively with crowned heads and holding hands. The man has either a tail or a large ear, and above him the blessing Yahweh and his Asherah is written. Could the couple on the Pithos be a rendering of God and his wife Asherah, the only one ever found? Dr. Yigal bin Nun, a researcher and author of A Brief History of Yahweh, I should read that book, has no doubt. If you want to step away from reality, then you can say this or that, but if you look at it, you can't ignore the truth. Among the detractors are Professor Taleh Ornan, who has studied the images of the site, and Professor Shmuel Achituv, an acclaimed ancient inscriptions researcher. Both contributed to a book on the topic together with Meshel and Esther Eshel, published last year. They think these figures show the minor Egyptian deity Bes, not Yahweh, the Jewish god. Bes is a dwarf who was the deity of witches, Achituv says, adding that in his view, the picture shown wouldn't befit a major divinity. Defending the picture of that of Yehovah ben Nun, an Israelite religious site on the border of Judah, under the political auspices of Assyria would be unlikely to hail Bes. We can skip ahead a little bit more. So the point here is, where was it? Okay, so the man has either a tail or a large penis, and above him the blessing Yahweh and its Asherah is written. Okay, and that's the point here. I guess you guys can go on and read the rest of the article on your own. But the point is, so this potsherd, and I think this is it right here. This must be a picture of it. Let's see if we can blow it up and even find it. A little bit hard to find. It's kind of broken, and the paleo is kind of, let's see. What is it? I can't find it on there. At any rate, so it says Yehovah and his Asherah, and it has a picture of, where'd we go? I'm back here. There it is. One second. Right, and it has and it shows a man and a woman. Right. So the idea is that this is some kind of syncretism, that Yehovah in this case was overlapped with some kind of idol, and Asherah is his wife. Right, so it's kind of like in a certain sense the golden calf, whereby the Israelites are thinking of this golden calf as Yehovah, but yet it has the form of a molten image. Right, it is a molten image. Right, so it's some kind of overlap or some kind of syncretism between our God Yehovah and I like that. A lot of Catholic idols here. Ben gives them the finger, and I spit too if no one's looking. Awesome. Believe me, where okay. At any rate, so that's that, right? So we see that that's what might be going on here, right? Because once again, we have the golden calf, and we see that Aaron says tomorrow is a Chag Liyawah, and then the next day the Israelites get up and they have this big festival to the golden calf, which they believe somehow is represents Yehovah, okay? Because Moses is gone. All right. So that's the main point I wanted to make there. maybe at this point, we can go over to, so, okay, let's just take a look for 1 second. 18. Just give me 1 second here. Yeah, that's not what I was looking for. One second. All right, let me skip that part. I was going to look for something else. At any rate, okay, so let's go on here. All right, we are now in verse 7. So remember, Moses was up on the mountain in Exodus 24. He had been called up onto the mountain for 40 days. Actually, I don't, let's check if it mentions 40 days in Exodus 24. No, so it doesn't mention it. There it is. Okay. Yavo Moshe b'toch Anan v'al el hahar v'yehi Moshe b'har 40 yom v'arba'im laila. So it says that he was up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, but the Israelites don't know how long he's going to be up on the mountain, right? And that's the problem. That's why they make the golden calf. Okay. Verse 7. So we are now in Exodus chapter 32, verse 7. Shabbat Shalom, Raphael Mike from Uganda. And we have, verse 7 says, V'yidaber Yehovah el Moshe, lech red ki shachet amcha asher heleta me'eretz Mitzrayim. So Yehovah says, come down off the mountain, your people have become corrupt, okay? And I told the story this morning of a rabbi of mine who used to say, before I was a Karaite, he used to talk about this verse, and he used to say, listen, here Yehovah says, go down, your people who you took out of the land of Egypt have become corrupt, right? Right? So Yehovah at this point is basically disowning the people of Israel, and he's saying, these are your people, right? So the rabbi used to give the example of two parents who have a son or a daughter or whatever, and when the use the son for an example, when the son does well in school, one of the parent, the mother says, "Oh, my son has done so well in school. Look at this, my son made the honor roll," and blah blah blah. And when the son messes up and does something bad, says, your son did this and your son did that, and so this is kind of what seems to be what's going on here, right? Yehovah is saying, your people who you took out of the land of Egypt, right? Look what they've done, right? Yehovah saying, this is your problem, this is your offspring, not mine in a certain sense. All right. At any rate, verse 8. Saru maher min haderech asher tzivitim. We're in verse 8. So he's now telling Moshe. So Moshe doesn't know what's going on. God, Yehovah, is telling Moshe what's going on. That they have made a molten calf, right? And that they're bowing down to it. And they're bringing sacrifices to it. And they said, these are your gods, Israel. So then God is basically repeating what the Israelites said. These are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, to Moshe. And God is obviously, Yehovah is obviously pissed off. Can I use that when talking about God? And upset, and maybe very hurt, and all of these kinds of things, right? So imagine you do all this for your children, and they spit in your face by rejecting you and making a false god, right? So this is the way Yehovah must feel. I know it's not cool to attribute emotions and feelings to Yehovah, but I actually do believe that that's a mistake. I believe that Yehovah does have feelings and does have emotions. I think it's very clear in many different cases. So if we could anthropomorphize for a second and try to think how we would feel if we were in the same situation, if we'd done everything for our children and they completely rejected us and spit in our face. So it's understandable that Yehovah at this point is very upset and very angry and feels betrayed. Okay, at any rate, so we are now in verse. We're in verse 9. ויאמר יהוה אל משה ראיתי את העם הזה והנה עם קשה עורף הוא. So I have seen this people and I know that they are a stiff-necked nation, right? Am kashe oref, right? And this phrase appears a number of times in the Torah, okay? But this seems to unfortunately define us to this very day. Okay, אתה הניחה לי ויחר אפי בהם ואכלם ואעשה אותך לגוי גדול. Okay, so so now let me be and my wrath will go out upon them. Literally, my fire will burn from my nose, or my flames will come out of my nose, I guess you could say. And I will consume them, I will devour them, I will destroy them, basically. So Yoah says to Moshe, I'm going to make you, I'll get rid of them, and I'll start a new nation from you. Okay, and now Moshe's response is very similar to Abraham's response when he's defending Sodom. So he basically, I wouldn't say argues with Yehovah here, but he kind of contradicts Yehovah's intentions. And just as Abraham attempted to stick up for Sodom, so now here Moshe is going to stick up for the people of Israel, and he uses kind of the same tactic that Abraham used in Exodus and Genesis 12, is it? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe we'll even bring that up for a second. Must be 13. Wait a second, where'd it go? 15. Well, that's where the Brit Ben Abitanim. I lost Sodom. Lot. Oh, that's the 5 kings versus the 4 kings. Separate. Abraham. Babel. Okay. Let's find this. I could have sworn it was Genesis 12. No, and then we're already up to this. Okay. Oh, wait a second. Oh, because it's after Sarah, because then they go on to destroy. Right. Okay, my mistake. Genesis 18. Okay. So here it is in Genesis 18. Avram, he's not yet Avram, pleads for Sodom. Okay, so we'll just leave that open in case we need to refer back to it. Okay, but the point being that both use logic, right? So if we look at Genesis 18, then Avram, I'll just leave in the English for now, just to make it go a little bit more quickly, right? So he starts arguing logically for saving Sodom. He says, what if there are only 50 people? Are you going to sweep away an entire city based on 50 people, right? Right? And he even boldly says, will not the judge of all earth do right? Let's look at that in Hebrew. It sounds so much better. Right? So he's using logical arguments with God, with Yoah. He's saying, "Yigash Avraham Yomer ha'af tispet tzadik im rasha." Are you going to wipe away a righteous person with the righteous people with the evil people? Right? Maybe there are 50 righteous people within the city. Af tispeh velo tisa lemakom. Are you going to wipe them away? Are you going to wipe it away and not spare the place? Lema'an 50 tzadikim asher b'kirba, for the sake of the 50 righteous people who are in its midst, right? Halila lacha me'asot kedavar hazeh lahamit tzadik im rasha v'haya katzadik rasha. Halila lacha hashofet kol ha'aretz lo yaseh mishpat, right? So he's like almost lashing out at God, right? He's very motivated, and he feels he's putting his life at risk, I think, at this point, Avraham, right? Because he says, I'm sorry for speaking, let me just say one more thing. And he's very obsequious. He's very subservient to God when he speaks it, but he says what he has to say, and he says it very clearly. Should the judge of all the earth not do justice, right? So he's really like, he's calling God a hypocrite, basically, right? He's really lashing out at God, okay? And but what he's doing is he's using logical argumentation to quote unquote convince God to change his mind. And we see exactly the same thing here when Moshe is trying to convince God or change God's mind from basically wiping out all of Israel and starting a new nation from Moshe, right? But you see also that it's kind of complicated, I guess. Was God really serious about doing it? If he was, then how do you explain this verse right here, right? It says in verse 10, now let me be, and let my anger go out against them, and I will destroy them, I will consume them, and I will make you into a great nation. Okay? Why does he say to Moshe, let me be, right? He would have just said, I'm going to destroy Israel. Okay, he says, but leave me alone, let me be, right? So he's almost inviting Moshe to respond, right? No, I will not let you be, right? Or if he was really serious about it, he wouldn't even tell Moshe, right? He would just go ahead and do it and say, look down there, you see, look what I did, gone, and there's just a giant crater there, right? But that's not what's going on. So is it some kind of test? Is it, maybe God doesn't really want to do it, and he's hoping that Moshe will step in and give him a reason not to do it, okay? Again, I understand that I'm somewhat anthropomorphizing God, but I think it's a mistake to think that God has no emotions, has no feelings, or even that God knows exactly what he's going to do. I know that sounds almost heretical, and it would take a long philosophical discussion to explain what I mean, but I always give the example of the sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham, right? So Abraham is asked to sacrifice Isaac. Okay, if God knew exactly what Abraham was going to do, there would be no point to it, right? Because maybe there would be a point as a learning experience for Abraham, but I think more is going on there. I think Yehovah really wants to know: does this Abraham, who I'm putting all of my chips into this Abraham, I'm really trying to establish a close connection with him. Does he really love me? Does he really trust me? Okay, so I'm going to test him. And if Yehovah knew in advance exactly what Abraham was going to do, then there would really be no test, right? And I don't think that Yehovah could have known in advance what Abraham was going to do, because Abraham himself probably didn't even know what he was going to do, because he wasn't yet faced with the situation. It's one of the results of Yehovah giving human beings free will, right? We're the only creatures in existence that have free will. The animals don't have free will. The angels don't have free will. We can even make a philosophical argument that Yehovah himself doesn't have free will in a sense, because he can't do any evil. He can only do good, right? We're the only creatures who can choose between good and evil. There are no others, okay? And so if we don't have that choice, if Yehovah knows in advance how Abraham is going to choose, then Abraham doesn't really have any free will, right? So when Yehovah asks Abraham to sacrifice Yitzchak, he's perhaps hoping that Abraham will really go ahead with it, that Abraham loves him and trusts him so much that he'll do anything for him, right? The analogy I like to give is with an animal. If any of you have cats or dogs or other animals, you know that your animal will trust you. If you're close to your animal and your animal is close to you, they'll trust you with anything, okay? If you're going to take him to the vet and they have to have, God forbid, some kind of operation, right? They will trust you. You know that if you're there, that even though they're in pain at the time, right, that they somehow trust you, that you are going to do what's right for them, right? Any person who's ever taken their animal to the vet knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? The vet can be stabbing them with a vaccination, or touching them, or checking them, or poking at them. And as long as you're there, right in their presence, or you're even holding on to them, then the animal knows that somehow you can sense that the animal knows that what's being done is for their own good, right? So lahavdil, Avraham and we human beings are not animals, but it's the same kind of thing. Moshe, Yehovah really wants to know, does this Avraham really love me and really trust me? Will he trust me with anything, even if I tell him to do something that seems so horrible? And Avraham does pass the test, but if Yehovah had known in advance, then the whole thing would have been pointless, because it was through Avraham's love, okay? Yehovah wanted to know if Avraham really loves him, and there's no way that Yehovah could have known in advance. That being said, we'll get to another philosophical point, which I've also spoken about and said for many years, and that's the old argument between free will and determinism. And as I've said for many years, the answer to that question is that we both have 100% free will and there's 100% determinism. And how can that be? That is a mystery. That is a paradox that we cannot understand in this 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional world of space and time. Okay, I hope I haven't diverged too much, and I hope some of the points are clear. But the bottom line here is that it seems that Yehovah he hasn't like completely decided he's going to wipe out Israel, right? Because he wouldn't use this language, right? He wouldn't say, hey, Moshe, let me be now, and I'm going to go destroy this people, all right? He would just go do it, or he'd say, I've decided to destroy Israel, right? He's almost, it's almost like he wants to be convinced out of destroying Israel, okay? And so he couldn't have known on some level in advance exactly what Moshe is going to do, or else the whole point becomes moot, right? Hope that kind of makes sense what I'm saying. Anyway, verse 11, Moshe et Pnei Yehovah. So Moshe beseeched, pleaded, et Pnei Yehovah, pleaded before the face of God, or pleaded to the face of God, Elohav, his God, V'yomer, Lama Yehovah yachreh apcha mi'amcha asher hotzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim. Why, Yehovah, will you let your anger burn against your people who you took out of the land of Egypt? So now Moshe throws it right back in God's face, right? God said, your people, God says to Moshe, your people, okay, who you took out of Egypt have become corrupt, right? We saw that, where was that? Yeah, in verse 7, right? God says to Moshe, your people you took out of Egypt to become corrupt. And now Moshe throws it back at Yehovah, right? Or literally in Yehovah's face, because it says V'yachal Moshe Pnei Yehovah. He pleaded before Yehovah's face, or to Yehovah's face. Okay, your people who you took out of Egypt. Okay, why will you destroy them, or don't let your anger burn against them? So Moshe is saying, no, they're not my people only. They're your people. You're the one who took them out of Egypt, not me, right? So he's kind of, again, that's a logical argument. Moshe is reminding Yehovah that he was the one who took them out of Egypt, that they are his people, right? So why should he destroy it? Why let your anger burn against your people, your children, who you took out of the land of Egypt, right? So Moshe is responding to God, just as Avraham did, with, I guess you would say, logical or maybe emotional, or logical/emotional arguments, right? Okay, so b'koach gadol, with great strength, ubiyat hazakah, and a strong hand, right? So he's saying you went through all this trouble, right? You made this whole big show of taking these people out of Egypt, and now you're going to let your anger burn against them, right? Lama, verse 12, Lama yomru Mitzrayim lemor be'ra'ah hotzi'am la'arog otam be'harim. Why should you allow Egypt? Why let Egypt say, for evil purposes, for evil, or for bad deeds, or for how would I say it in English? Yeah, for evil purposes, for nefarious purposes. There was, in order to kill them in the mountains, right? So again, Moshe is using logical arguments. He's saying you're going to look like the whole thing. You did this whole 10-plague thing and killed off their firstborn and split the Red Sea. And you did all, you did a whole big shebang. And now you're going to look like an idiot if you in front of Egypt, the nation who you were trying to show your strength, so much so that by the time Israel was leaving, that Pharaoh was begging, who said he didn't know who you were at the beginning of the whole process, was begging to you to remember him and to bless him. And now you're going to look like a fool in front of Egypt. You're going to look like a hypocrite, right? Just as Abraham was calling God a hypocrite. So here Moshe is calling God a hypocrite, right? You're going to look like an idiot. Excuse me, if you do this, right? You're going to look like a hypocrite, and you're going to look like you're not going to look strong. It's not going to be a good look, as the millennials like to say, right? It's not going to look good for you to do this, right? So don't do it for their sake. So reason number one, they're your people, okay? They're not my people. They're your people. You took them out of Egypt, okay? Reason number two, you did a whole big shebang, right? You did the greatest show on earth to take them out of Egypt, and now you're just going to kill them off in the desert. What are the Egyptians going to say? It's going to make you look like a fool. So reason number two, you're going to look like an idiot, God, okay? Okay? Return from your furious anger. And hinachem is usually translated as relent. Okay, yeah, relent would be the correct translation here. Relent from the evil that you plan to do to the bad thing that you plan to do to your people. Okay, so that was reason number two. Okay, so then there's a kind of a little bit of emotional plea here, right? Have mercy on your people, right? So that would be kind of reason number three. And now we go to verse 13. Zachor Avraham Yitzchak Yisrael avadecha asher nishbat alehem bach utidaber alehem arbeh zarachem kachochavei hashemayim. So now here, we won't count three as the begging, the emotional plea. We'll count this as three, right? So here's reason number three. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, as the rabbis like to say, schut avot, okay, which maybe has some merit to it, but in this case. Again, it seems that Moshe is trying to tug at God's, heartstrings, saying, remember, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, what did you promise them? Asher nishbat alehem bach v'tidaber elehem. You swore to them, bach, by your own name. Okay, not just nishbat alehem bach. You swore by your own name, right? You said, I swear by the name Yehovah. This is God saying, right? ותדבר עליהם הרבה את זרעכם ככוכבי השמיים וכל הארץ הזאת אשר אמרתי אתן לזרעכם ונחלה לעולם, right? And what did you swear them? You said, I will make your seed like the stars in the sky, right? As numerous as the stars in the sky. And וכל הארץ הזאת אשר אמרתי אתן לזרעכם ונחלה לעולם. And I will give you this land, meaning the land of Israel, paraphrasing here, as an inheritance for eternity, right? So that's plea number three, right? You remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You swore to them using your own name. You swore on your own name, right? That their descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And now you're going to wipe them out? What? You're a hypocrite. I wouldn't say hypocrite here, but you're going to go back on your promise. You're going to disappoint. You're going to break your promise to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Israel. Okay. Maybe these people don't deserve it, but Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob certainly deserve it, right? They were good to you, right? They followed your ways. They walked in your paths. Okay, so spare these people so as not to break your promise to them. Okay, and you promised that their descendants would inherit the land of Israel, right? So if you kill all these people off in the desert, right? There's no one's going to inherit the land of Israel. There's not going to be a nation that inherits the land of Israel. What am I? I'm just a single human being. I have two sons, right? Gershom and Shamgar. And what am I gonna, me and a couple of people are gonna inherit the land of Israel. How are we gonna fight off the Canaanites, etc., right? And so God relented. He regretted, or he relented upon the evil, the nefarious intentions that he had spoken to do to his people. So we really have a parallel here when human beings. Oh. Ariella and Ben, I don't know if you can hear me, but I see you trying to get up onto the the Streamyard stream, but it says device is not connected. I could try this again. Add to stream. Oh, there we go. Okay. Are you guys there? Hello. All right. Well, join in when you wish. Okay. I see you up on the stream, but I can't hear anything you're saying. So that's where we're. Shabbat Shalom, Mishpachat desde Cuba. Wow. Oh my gosh. Welcome. So, okay. And we have someone from Brazil. We have from Cuba. We have from Uganda. My good friend Raphael Mike. How are you doing, Raphael Mike? How are the beans? Did you make beans today? Every time I speak to him, he's making beans. Okay. So that being said, so we see that there's a that when human beings want to convince God of something, and they're animated and they really believe in what they want to convince, they seem to use logic, right? They use some emotion and they use logical arguments. Abraham used logical arguments, and here Moshe uses logical arguments, right? Okay. Let's go on. Verse 15. ויפן וירד משה מן ההר ושני לוחות העדות בידו לוחות כתובים משני עבריהם מזה ומזה הם כתובים. So here comes Moshe down finally after 40 days. We saw in Exodus 24 that he stayed up on the mountain for 40 days, and now he's finally coming down with the two tablets in his hand. And okay, I shouldn't do this, but I can't resist. We have actual footage. Biblical archaeologists have actually uncovered actual footage of this, of Moshe coming down off the mountain, and I'd like to play it for you right here. Okay, so just give me a second. So this is a recent archaeological discovery. It's a very, very, very big archaeological discovery. So they found actual footage of Moshe coming down off the mountain.
Moses went to the mountain, and God spoke unto him.
Moses, this is the Lord thy God, commanding you to obey my law. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, I hear you. A deaf man could hear you.
What?
Nothing, I'm finished. Forget it. Oh, Lord, why have you chosen me? What would you have me do for you?
I shall give you my laws, and give unto the people.
Yes, Lord. Lord, I shall give these laws unto the people. Hear me. Oh, hear me. All pay heed. The Lord Jehovah, has given unto you these 10 commandments for all to obey.
Okay, so that's that. Actual footage of Moshe receiving the commandments. And so it turns out we never knew this before. There are actually 15 commandments rather than 10 commandments. Right? Okay. All right, let me share the screen again. Window, Torah. There we go. Okay. So, yes, a new archaeological discovery. Okay, so at any rate, we're back in the Torah. Mishnei Avrehem Mizeh uMizeh Hem Ketuvim. So I always like to point out, and I started talking about it. No, I didn't speak about it this morning, but I'll speak about it now. There's a midrash that I learned in yeshiva. I don't know what the source of it is. Maybe I could find it. Forget it. I'm not even going to find it. But I remember learning it in yeshiva that it says that the tablets were written Mishnei Avrehem, from their two extremities, I guess you could say, their two sides. Mizeh uMizeh Hem Ketuvim, that they were written on both sides. So the rabbis say that this means that the letters were actually chiseled through from one side to another side, right? And they left empty spaces in the stone. So if you turned it around, you could see the empty space from the other side, right? And then I remember learning in yeshiva, the rabbis told me, well, what about the samech? Okay, let's look at the samech. There's a picture of a samech. Okay, it's a kind of a round circle with a hole in it, right? So if it's chiseled through from one side to the other side, you have this area in the center which would be stone, right? But if it falls away, then it's not going to be a samech anymore. So the rabbis taught me in yeshiva that the stone in the center miraculously stayed in place It was held by, magic or maybe by magnets or God knows what. But it miraculously stayed in place. This center circle here, the center stone, miraculously stayed in place. And that was a miracle. Okay. Well, what's stupid about that argument? Of course, the Israelites at the time did not use the Assyrian script. They used the Paleo script, right? Or maybe Proto-Sinaitic script, as other people may say. But we'll go with the Paleo script for now. Paleo Hebrew. And let's get a look at Paleo Hebrew. So let's find our samech. This is not a samech. This is an ayin over here. Maybe it'd be better if I use this so you can see the difference. Oops. I guess this will have to do. So where'd we go? Chatet Yud Chaf, blah, 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 blah. Pei, Tzadi Kuf, there's our ayin, there's our samech. Okay, so this is what a samech looked like in Paleo Hebrew. I wish I could blow it up. I think it doesn't work if I blow it up. All right, let's do Paleo Hebrew samech. There we go. Oops. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you can see it. This is what the samech looked like in Paleo Hebrew. It didn't look like this thing on the right. Okay, this is the Assyrian or the Ashurit script. This came much later, basically during the Second Temple period times. Okay, and this is what in Paleo Hebrew, in the script that would have been used at those times, this is what the samech looked like. And of course, you could see that there's no stone that needs to float in the center. So again, it just shows how ridiculous the rabbis are. Okay, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they just meant it as a midrash. They're just telling stories and they're teaching lessons, etc., etc. But there are many Orthodox Jews who would believe this literally. And so, at any rate, those who do believe it literally are, you can always point that out to them and throw it. It's kind of like throwing a bucket of water in their faces, just for fun, to show them how stupid it is to take these things literally, or how alternatively how dumb the rabbis can be sometimes. Okay, so that's our daily rabbi bashing. I like to do a little rabbi. I don't like to dwell on it, but for fun, for kicks and giggles, I love to do a little bit of rabbi bashing every shiur. I don't think I can get through a shiur without doing at least some rabbi bashing. Okay, so Moshe comes down with the 10 commandments, and so, okay, verse 16, we're up to Luchot Ma'aseh Elohim Hema wa Michtav Elohim hu Harut al Luchot. So these were written directly by God's hand, right? Moshe didn't write them. It says very clear that the Torah wants us to know that these were chiseled on both sides, and it doesn't mean going through from one side to the other. It probably just means a replication on each side. So whichever side you looked at, it wouldn't be blank. You'd see the repetition of the 10 commandments or the 10 statements. Okay. So these were made Michtav Elohim, the writing of God. Hu Harut al Haluchot. Okay, it was chiseled onto the tablets. Okay, verse 7. Waishma Yoshua et kol am. Remember, Yeshua went up with Moshe. We saw that in Exodus 24. Be're'oah wayomer el Moshe kol milchama b'machaneh. So Yoshua heard the voice of the people as they shouted. Okay, and this underlying verb here is the same as Yom Tru'ah. Okay. Let's see if we can find. So they actually say dubious. The BDV says it's dubious. Kol ha'am be're'oah. Some of the people, they shouted. And let's just see here. Yeah, Tariu, Hariotam, Tariu, right? So it's the same verb as Yom Tru'ah, right? I'm not going to go explore it anymore now, but that's the same verb we have here. Okay, so they were making noise, or they were shouting. Okay, Waishma Yeshua et kol ha'am be're'oah. Okay, why Yomer el Moshe kol milchama b'machaneh, and Yeshua says there is the voice of a war in the camp. So Yeshua thinks there's a war going on. So what's happening here, right? Because Moshe already knows what's going on. Okay. God already told Moshe. Did Moshe not tell Yehoshua? Or maybe both Moshe and Yeshua, it would seem from the next verse, don't know exactly what's going on. They know that a golden calf has been made, but they don't know that the Israelites are, on the day they come down, are celebrating a chag, a celebration to this golden calf. It would seem that that's the logical explanation from the next verse, right? Verse 18, وَيَوْمَرْ إِنْ قَلْ عَنُوت גבורה وَإِنْ قَلْ عَنُوت חלושה قَلْ عَنُوت أَنُخِي شُمَيْعَ. Okay, so this is not the crying of how would you say gvura in English, brave or victory, like anot halusha, or not the cry of weakness, of losing in battle, of waning in battle or losing in battle. Kol anot anochi shomea. Okay, it's basically the cry or the rejoicing that I hear. Right. Let's get an English translation for that one, because that's a little bit tricky. I'd like to see how some of the translations deal with that one. So that is Exodus 32:18. We'll go to our Mr. Robert Alter, as I always like to go to. Let's see how he translates it. Not the sound of crying out in triumph, and not the sound of crying out in defeat, a sound of crying out I hear. So anot is the word here. Okay, let's take a look at this word. So it's right to, it's basically from the word ana, to answer, okay? But in this case, anot, so they translate it here as the crying out, but I'm trying to think of a better translation. I'll take a look at how Robert Alter deals with it in a second. Maybe anot gvura. It's not the sound of the response of victory. It's not the sound of the response of defeat. It is the sound of some kind of response that I hear. Right. So basically, what Moshe is saying is has nothing to do with war. Right. There's no I don't hear any kind of victory or any kind of a defeat going on. I just hear kind of a general, noise making, or a general, ruckus going on, right? All right, let's see what Robert Alter does. Oh, we already saw. Not the sound of crying out in triumph, and not the sound of crying out in defeat. A sound of crying out I hear. Okay, take a look at his commentary on it. Right, in this triadic line of poetry that Moses uses to respond to Joshua, triumph, literally might, and defeat, literally weakness, are antithetically bracketed, and then the third member of the line, as often happens in poetic triads, introduces a new unstable element. The common claim that the Hebrew for crying out, anot, means singing, is dubious because the sound has just been described as shouting, so it might include singing. The same term, anot, occurs in 2 Samuel 22:36, where it probably means battle cry. Moses' response to Yeshua then is that he hears an indiscriminate uproar which has nothing to do with military matters. Exactly. So I agree 100% with what he's saying here, right? Singing is, of course, a bad translation, right? Anot, we saw, comes from ana, to answer or to respond. So it's as we said, okay? So Yeshua is saying that there's a sound of war, and Moshe is saying, well, if it were war, I would hear either victory or defeat. I don't hear any of that. I just hear, some kind of ruckus going on. I don't know what it is, right? So it seems that Moshe doesn't know what's going on either down there in the camp. Let's look at how Everett Fox deals with this one. So again, we are in Exodus 32:18. Exodus 32:18. But he said, not the sound of the song of prevailing, and not the sound of the song of failing, sound of choral song is what I hear. Okay, so he goes with the idea of a note being a song, but it doesn't really mean a song. It just means like an answering, a response. I guess just a kind of a general noise is what it's referring to here, right? Okay, so let's go on. Well, okay, ויהי כאשר קרב אל המחנה וירא את העגל ומחולות ויחר אף משה וישלך מידיו את הלוחות וישבר אותם תחת ההר. So Moshe sees what's going on, right? He sees the calf, he sees the dances, and he is furious, and he breaks these tablets. Okay, as we all know, right? And remember, these were tablets that were written by the very hand of God. So he's breaking God's work, right? In his anger. But the response is actually quite, shall we say, it's quite appropriate for what's going on. I mean, the people, they've rejected the God. So he says, okay, you've rejected God. Well, you don't need these things anymore, right? I mean, you're spitting in God's face. So so I'll take this gift that I got from God and I'll just break it to pieces because there's no need, you don't need it, you don't want it, you're not worthy of it, right? So the response is not just kind of a random response, right? It's not just acting out of anger, right? He could have, if he was acting out of anger, I don't know, he could have taken it an automatic weapon and blown him away. Well, we'll get to that. But he breaks the luchot, right? He breaks the tablets, and it seems an appropriate response. The nation has rejected God, so he in his anger says, "Well, then you don't get this gift from God. You don't want it. You don't need it. You don't deserve it." Okay. I'm curious to see what Walter may say there, because that is kind of Moses, of course, has already been informed about all of this, but as the Hebrew proverb has it, hearing is not the same as seeing. Well, it's more than that, right? Because he doesn't know that they're celebrating a festival down there. He just knows that they've built the calf, right? Actually, again, does he know? Right. Oh, he does know that they're bowing down. He was told that they're bowing down and sacrificing to it. Okay. But I guess he didn't expect a celebration. So, okay. His wrath flares precisely what he implored God not to allow to occur with his divine wrath. Good point. And he responds in a paroxysm, I don't even know what that is, of anger, flinging, and smashing. There's also a good deal of evidence that in the ancient Near East, smashing the tablets on which a binding agreement was written was a legal act of abrogating the agreement. Interesting. That's a good point. Right? So it's like the pissed off wife throwing the lamp against the wall, like, the proverbial scene in the movie, right? Who just finds out that her, husband cheated on her and she takes, she trashes the place. Okay. I think it's more than that. I think it's not just anger. It's more what Robert Alta says here, that smashing the tablets on which a binding agreement was written was a legal act of abrogating the agreement. Moshe is basically saying, well, you've broken, he's basically saying you won't need these, right? You've already broken the Brit, you've already broken the covenant, so I'm going to break the covenant as well, right? You won't be needing these things. You've already chosen another God. Okay, let's go on. So Moses breaks the tablets. And he breaks them. Where does it say tachat har? Okay, well, tachat har is exactly the same place. This is mentioned where the Israelites are. So on the base of the mountain, I guess you could say, right? And this is mentioned before as the place where the Israelites were supposed to set up a fence and gather around. So I don't know if that's coincidence. Let's see if we can find that. We'll go to, that would be in Exodus 18, I'm going to say. Jethro advises Moses. Let me just grab it in English so I can just kind of skim through it. We'll move to the Hebrew. No, I have a better way to do this. Let's do this. Oops. See, one of the things I love to do when I'm studying Torah is there's a lot of deliberate parallelism or repetition, right? Things are often not coincidental. They kind of harken back to each other, or they foreshadow what's going to happen in the future. So if it says tachat tahar, and we've seen this expression before, it might very possibly be deliberate, right? So let's see what happened tachat tahar. We can skip through Genesis because it's not relevant. Grab this. Okay, and we get to Exodus. It's 10. Tachat. מתחת יד מצרים, אחת, no, it's going back too far. One second, that's all ein tachat ein. Maybe the word there's tachtit. So let's look at that. Have it here tachtit tahar. Let's go with har. Oops. Okay, Exodus. נגד ההר, חונה שם ההר אלוהים. No, it's going back too far. So it says here, נגד ההר, in Exodus 19. עלות בהר ונוגע בקצהו. משה מן ההר אל העם. ההר הוא כל שפר, יתצפו בתחתית ההר. Here it is in Exodus 19:17. So let's take a look at that in Hebrew. Exodus 19:17. Oh, we'll try to get Ariel and Ben up again. So Exodus 19:17. We'll start in 16. Wahi b'yom hashlishi. So this is now on the third day, right? They were supposed to purify themselves for 3 days. B'yot baboker wahi kolot barakim anan kaved al har. So we have the thunder and lightning and a thick cloud on the mountaintop. V'kol shofar hazak me'od, and the voice of a ram's horn or a animal horn, hazak me'od, very strong. V'yachrad kol ha'am asher b'machaneh, and the entire nation was trembled. Yaharad, same root as haredi, right? Haredim. ויוצא משה את העם לקראת אלוהים מן המחנה ויתייצבו בתחתית ההר. So Moshe went out et ha'am, with, in this case, et means with, the people towards God, min hamachane, from the camp. We yatzfu b'tachtit har, and they assembled at the base of the mountain. Okay, b'tachtit har. So this is where the people assembled when they're getting the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments come in then right away, right? Sinai Ashan Kulo, and then God comes down, and basically in chapter 20, in the next chapter, Yahweh gives them the 10 Commandments, right? So they're all assembled at the Tachtit Har. That's where they're getting the 10 Commandments. Okay, so is it coincidence? We shaber otam tachat har. Now we're back in Exodus chapter 32, verse 19. That when Moshe breaks the tablets, he breaks them at the base of the mountain. Right, that's the same place where the people assembled to receive the 10 Commandments. So I would say that no, it's not a coincidence that the Torah is making a statement here, right? That the same people, same place, or the same place where the people assembled to get the 10 Commandments is exactly where Moses breaks the 10 Commandments, right? Okay. So I wonder if any of the commentators pick up on that. Nope, Robert Alter doesn't have anything to say about it. Numerous commentators have noted. Flinging into the fire. Okay, so then he goes on to other stuff. I wonder if Rashi has anything to say about it. So this is 32. Where were we? Oops. 32:19. Sometimes Rashi has something interesting to say. Sometimes you just get a good chuckle. Usually you just get a good chuckle. So 32:19. So he just explains what that means at the foot of the mountain, the base of the mountain. And that's it. That's all he has to say. Okay, so Rashi has nothing to say. Should have some other good commentaries to look at. What would be another good commentary? I don't know. I have to find some good ones. I wish one of my favorite biblical scholars, David Daub, had written a full commentary on the Torah. That would have been great. Okay, so ויקח את עשו וישרוף באש ויטחן עד אשר דק ויזר על פני המים וישק את בני ישראל. So Moshe takes matters into his own hands. Okay, so Aaron didn't have presence, didn't have the gravitas to stop Israel from doing what they wanted to do, from making an idol. But Moshe now daddy's back home. And so Moshe takes matters into his hands, and he's very unequivocal about what he wants to do and what he does. He takes this golden calf, he burns it in the fire, and he basically pounds it down into a thin powder. Water, we shake Israel, and he makes. So let's get some ideas on this one. Numerous commentators have noted the approximate analogy to the ordeal by drinking, to which the woman suspected of adultery is submitted. Okay. I was going to ask exactly the same question. Interestingly, proposes that this would have to have been the water that Moses miraculously provided for. And that's exactly the point I wanted to make. As a matter of fact, that we saw Moshe hit the rock, Refidim, which was, it seems, right near Sinai, or maybe Sinai was in Refidim. That was back in Exodus 17, if I remember correctly. Yep. So there we go. Let's bring this over to the English just to be able to skim it a little bit more quickly. So they're in Refidim, and Moses takes a staff with which he struck the Nile, right? His famous staff that he has used, or Aaron has used, and I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb, and so Horeb is somehow, or Horeb is within Rephidim. At any rate, at this point, they seem already at Mount Sinai or near Mount Sinai. Okay, let's take a look at that. Remember, which we will continue once they start journeying again. They're still at Sinai. So it's so they arrive at Rephidim. And then we see here, Exodus 18:5. It says that Yitro came to Moshe Hara Elohim, but does not mention any travel from Rephidim. And then they're in the desert of Sinai, and they still have not traveled anywhere. So they're already at Hara Elohim, but there was no mention of any travel from Rephidim, right? It just Moshe comes to Yitro at Hara Elohim while they were already in Rephidim. So it would seem that Rephidim is the general area in which we find Horeb or find Mount Sinai, or perhaps Rephidim is the region, Horeb is the specific area, and Sinai is the mountain. Okay, just as we mentioned in Genesis that we have Haran, Padan Aram, and Aram Naharaim representing city, state, and country by analogy, or more or less. So it's that when Moshe did strike this rock, that he was in at or near Har Sinai. So what is the relevance of that? The relevance of that is that when Moshe burns and then grinds up the golden calf and throws it in the water, that as Robert Alter's quoting some guy named Richard Elliott Friedman, who I have no idea who that is, but he says that it's the same water that Moshe miraculously provided when he, in Exodus 17, as related in Exodus 17, when he struck the rock with his staff and made the water come out. Okay, so they're still there. They're still in. It would seem Rephidim is the same as basically, or is the same area as Har Sinai. Okay. So that's the answer to that question, perhaps. I never say for sure unless I'm 100% sure, but it would seem that that's the answer to that question, that what the water that he threw it into is that same water mentioned in Exodus 17 that he had, it's like a divine booty spanking was laid down. Of course, that's Yarden would have to. That's my good friend Yarden. Okay, at any rate, so that's the water, it would seem, right? That same water that Moshe had to take his staff and strike the rock back in Exodus 17. And we also learned from that Rephidim, Hara Elohim, and Midbar Sinai are all basically the same place, right? Because it says they arrived in the Midbar Sinai in 19:2, but they were already at Hara Elohim in Exodus 18:5, unless we could say the Torah is out of order, but I don't think it was in this case. So it seems that Rephidim, Hara Elohim, and Midbar Sinai, we know that the Hara Elohim, the mountain of God, is also Mount Sinai. So the desert of Sinai would seem to be the same place. Okay. And so it would seem that all three of these places are the same place. We know Hara Elohim, what that is. We know that's the mountain where the Israelites received the Ten Commandments. We also know that that's the same mountain that Moshe was at when the burning bush incident occurred at the beginning of the book of Exodus. Okay. So that's the water, probably, or perhaps. By the way, if anyone knows any other good commentaries, I don't care if they're rabbinical or not, please let me know. I would love to have more than just Robert Alter to refer to. I mean, I think he's great, but it would be nice to have other opinions out there. But something along the lines of this quality, where it's really, good analysis, not just Rashi's rabbinical gobbledygook. Okay. All right. So we are Okay, and he made Israel drink it. Okay, so that's right in your face, right? Hold on, I just gotta close the window here. Light shining right in my face. Talking about faces. So Moshe's really sticking it right in their faces, right? He's making them drink. It's like when you stick a dog's nose in its poop, right? So Moshe's sticking Israel's nose right in its own poop. He's taking this golden calf and making them drink it. Okay. Alrighty. And then we're up to verse 21. Wayomer Moshe el Aharon ma asa lecha ha'am azeh ki heveta alav hata gedola. So now Moshe says to Aaron, what the heck is going on here? Okay. Verse 22. Wayomer Aaron al yachar af adoni ata yadata et ha'am ki bara hu. So Aaron says, hey, you know who you're dealing with here, right? That's basically what verse 22 says. And this is kind of weird here. Rahu. It really should say Amki Yadata et Ha'amki Rahu. You know this people, how evil they are, but it says Ki Rahu because they are bent on evil. Maybe you would translate that as. Again, let's take a look at how some of the translations deal with it. Because they are upon evil, they are in evil, they are bent on evil. That's how the way I would translate it. Okay. Af Adoni ki yadata et ha'am ki rahu. You know these people that they are bent on evil. We have this extra added preposition ra. Okay. Let's see how Everett Fox deals with that one. Oops. So that's Exodus 32:22. You yourself know this people have set on evil, right? So bent on evil, same. So that's how he deals with the bit at the beginning of Ra. Because it's kind of a strange construct, as a matter of fact. Let's see how Robert Alter deals with it. 22, probably the same way, I'm going to guess. You yourself know that this people is in an evil way. Okay, yeah, interesting. Okie doke. Any comment on that? No. Alrighty. Verse 23, Wayomru li aseh lanu Elohim asher yilchu lefanenu ki ze Moshe ha'ish asher he'elanu me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yadanu ma haya lo. So Aaron is explaining what's going on here, why he's giving his reasoning, or why he was basically backed into a corner and had to do what he had to do. The people demanded it. They had no idea where you Moshe had gone, and they demanded this golden calf. Omar lehem lemi zahav hitparku v'yitnu li v'ashlechu ba'esh ha'egel azeh, right? And I said to them, who has gold, right? Hitparku, take it off, v'yitnu li, and give it to me, v'ashlechu ba'esh v'yitzeh ha'egel azeh. And I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf, right? So Aaron is basically trying to down. It's almost like, as I'm sure many of the commentators will point out, it's almost like a child who's been caught by his parent or by his teacher, and is giving just like some lame excuse, like how did this I don't know, how did this I don't know, let's use an example from when I was a kid before we had cell phones. How did this I don't know, this baseball get into your into your desk. Oh, I just opened up my desk and out came this baseball or something like that, right? Yeah, no one's going to believe that one, right? So Robert Alter says, Aaron, in his feeble attempt at an alibi, uses the same verb for violent or spasmodic throwing that was employed for Moshe's casting down the tablets. Oh, that's an interesting point. Let's take a look at that. I threw them into the fire. Right, so ashlichehu, lashlich means to cast or to throw. right? And that's exactly what he's pointing out. And here, that's the same verb as is used in Exodus 32:18. Vayashlech miado et halachot, the same verb that Moshe used to out came this calf. All right. Let's see what Rashi said that one for kicks and giggles. Kibarahu. אשלחהו באש ולא ידעתי שיצא העגל הזה ויצא. It's retarded. So I cast it into the fire, and I did not know that this calf would come out, but it came out. So Rashi seems to be buying into Aaron's excuse, which just shows what a horrible commentator he is. As I always like to say, Rashi is the worst Torah commentator I've ever come across in my entire life. He's horrible. Once in a while, he says something interesting, but usually just repeats rabbinical gobbledygook from the Talmud and from the Midrashim and from wherever. So at any rate, Rashi's actually buying into Aaron's lame excuse. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so where were we? Okay. Right. Okay, enough of that. Verse 25, Yar Moshe et ha'am ki paruahu ki par'a Aaron l'shimtza bi'kamehem. Alrighty. So Moshe saw that this nation these people were basically out of control. Ki para'o Aaron l'shimtza bi'kamehem. You have to get an English translation for that one. I'm not sure exactly how to translate, to be honest. So let's see what Robert Alter has to say. So that's 32:25. And Moses saw the people that it was let loose, that they were out of control, for Aaron had let them loose as a shameful thing to their adversaries. That's how he deals with that one. Okay, let's take a look back at the Hebrew. Okay. He para'o Aaron, so the nation had let them loose or let him loose. L'shimtza b'kamehem. Okay. Interesting. L'shimtza. So l'shimtza is like a disgrace, b'kamehem, against their enemies. Okay, let's see how Fox deals with it. And now when Moshe saw the people that had gotten loose, for Aaron had let it loose for whispering among their foes. Whispering. Okay. This word shimtza for a second. Derision, that would be the perfect word. Whisper derision. And it only appears once. Interesting. It only appears once. See, Hebrew shemetz. Here's the word shemetz, whisper. Appears twice, only in Job, though. Much later book. So in modern Hebrew, shemetz means like not even, they say any shemetz musag, they like to say, right? I don't have an inkling of an idea, right? Shemetz is like a tiny drop. So here they translate it as whisper, faint, right? Here, oops, where'd that go? Whisper derision. So really, I guess whisper might be better based on the ones in Job, right? So maybe in this case, Everett Fox's translation would be better. Aaron had let it loose for whispering among their foes. But the whispering among their foes implies derision, right? So I think derision is also good, right? Because they're whispering nasty things about Israel. So basically what Moshe is saying is Aaron. Okay, so now let me render my own translation. We are Moshe et Aram, and Moshe looked at, realized that the people realized that the people, or saw that the people were out of control. Kipara'o, because, and this is as a suffix which means him or the people. Kipara'o Aaron, because Aaron had let them loose or had allowed them to be wild. The shimtza b'kamehem, so that their enemies may whisper about them in derision, right? Or may mumble about them, may mumble about them, maybe is good, right? So that's what's going on. So Moshe is accusing Aaron of basically weakening them in the eyes of their enemies by letting them, go crazy with this golden calf and the dancing and the singing and the general merriment around this idol, right? So now the enemies are going to see this. They're going to start talking about Israel behind their back, and perhaps put Israel in danger. The enemies are going to realize that Israel's a bit out of control and that they've rejected their God, right? Okay, verse 26. Yamod Moshe b'sha'ar ha'machaneh, yomer mi liYehovah elai. And Moshe stood at the gate of the camp, the entrance to the camp, and said, "Who is Yehovah Elai?" So we know that the camp is a bit removed from Har Sinai, right? Because we saw in Exodus 17, was it, that Moshe and the people came out from the camp towards the base of the mountain. So the camp is a little bit removed from the mountain. And so Moshe now goes remember, he just smashed the tablets at the bottom of the mountain. Well, actually done all this stuff in the meantime. He's taken the calf, etc., etc. But now he goes to the entrance of the camp, and he says, "Mi le Yehovah Elai," right? So where do we see this phrase elsewhere? Just give me 1 second, and I'll try to bring it up. Meantime, you can try to think about the answer to that question. One second. One second. One second. Trying to find it. If I can't find it, I'll just forget it. One more second, and I'll just drop it. No, I can't find it. All right, forget it. All right, forget it. I was going to try to make a point, but I can't find it, so I'm just going to skip that. All right. So, me li Yehovah Elai, who is to God, come to me. Whoever is for Yehovah, come to me. Yasfu elav kol bnei Lewi, and all the children of Lewi came to him. Right. So Moses' tribe, Aaron's tribe, We already saw that the Levites had been officially chosen as the ones who are going to be who are going to have the priestly class, right? We saw that in, let's see, that must have been Exodus around 28 or so, I'm going to say. Yep, Exodus 28:1. Have Aaron, your brother, brought to you from among the Israelites, along with his son Nadav and Avihu, Eleazar and Itamar, so they may serve me as priests. So this is the first mention in the entire Tanakh we saw last week. I think I actually wrote it down in Interesting Things, right? Exodus 28:1. This seems to be the first mention of Aaron and his sons being chosen as the Kohanim for Israel. So Exodus 28:1, we see that Levi has already been chosen as the priest, or they're officially chosen at that point, or it's mentioned at that point for the first time. It's never mentioned before. So these were already the priests, right? So the Levites, who are the priests of Yehovah, or who contain the priests of Yehovah, or who deal with the holy things of Yehovah, I should say, to be more accurate, they're the ones who come to answer the call of Moshe. So, but it's also Moshe's own tribe, right? So his own brethren come to answer the call. Okay. Where were we? Bnei Levi. Okay, verse 27. Wayomer lehem ko amar Yehovah Elohei Israel simu ish harbo al Yericho ivru washuvu mish'ar lish'ar b'machaneh wahirgu ish et ahav wa ish et re'ehu wa ish et kirovo. So, so Moshe says to them, okay, basically take your swords and go around from gate to gate. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe that means the gates, the entrances to the tents, or maybe there were actual gates. Maybe each tribe had its own gate to its own encampment. So each person should kill his own brother, his own kin, his own friend, and his own relative, or maybe neighbor. So 3,000 people died on that day. The Levites wiped out 3,000 people. I don't know how they chose the 3,000 people. ויאמר משה מילאו ידכם היום ליהוה כי איש בבנו ובאחיו ולתת עליהם היום בברכה. And Moshe said, fulfill your requirement. מילאו ידכם היום ליהוה. כי איש בבנו ובאחיו ולתת עליהם היום ברכה. So Moshe is basically saying to them, you brought blessing upon yourself by killing these 3,000 people who were disloyal to God. Okay, let's see if there's any interesting commentary. Okay, 29. It's the same idiom for priestly dedication. Fill your hands, and that in the context of the tabernacle cult was rendered as install. So blessing may be given to you. The Hebrew syntax is a little bit obscure, it certainly is, but the evidence sense is that the Levites, through their homicidal zealotry, confirm their dedication as a priestly class and thus worthy recipients of God's blessing. So let's look at the verse again. Okay. Wayomer Moshe milu yedchem hayom. Okay. Fulfill your duty, or as Robert Alter says, sanctify yourselves, right? Hayom liyoah. Fulfill your duty, I'm going to translate it as. Let's see how Edward Fox deals with it. be mandated to Yehovah today, even though it be every man at the cost of his son, at the cost of his brother, to bestow blessing upon you today. Okay, be mandated to, how does he say it again? Be mandated to Yehovah. Milu yedechem is literally fulfill your hands or fulfill your duty today to Yehovah. Be mandated. Sanctify yourself to Yehovah. Ki ish bivno u'ahav. Because each person has been against his son and against his brother. Okay, the language is a bit complicated, but basically the underlying theme seems to be that you've dedicated yourselves or you fulfilled your duty to Yehovah by going against even your own son and your own brother, and that has brought blessing upon you. And that's being spoken to the Levites who went out and killed these 3,000 people. Again, I don't know how the 3,000 people were chosen, but the fact that it was against friend, your own relative, is the Levites that killed other Levites. That'll fight. Oh, Ben says, look at 32 4 stones and mold. 34. Look. In what I said, tablets, interesting. Okay, I'm not familiar with the Eitz Chaim Chumash. Okay. Alrighty. Cloth. I'm not sure exactly what the point is because I'm not sure what that would have to do with cloth at all. Mold, I understand. So it's... I'm not sure what your point is, Ben, exactly. So if you want to clarify, please do either in writing or if you can somehow come up and explain, then I can take a look at it again. Okay. So where were we? Right. Okay. Well, so it's interesting what's going on here, right? At any rate, the Levites wipe out 3,000 people. That somehow appeases God, who realized that the perpetrators of this horrible act have somehow been taken care of. It's unclear when it says that the Levites answered to Moshe's call, me le Yehovah Elai, and it says that they killed their own brothers, even their own brothers, their own friends, their own neighbors. Does that imply that they killed other Levites? Were the Levites the ringleaders? Unclear. We know that Korach, much later on, was a Levite, and he was a ringleader against Moshe. So I don't know. Are the Levites troublemakers? Right? We know that the blessing that was given to Shimon and Levi was that they should be scattered in Israel because they're basically troublemakers. So it's unclear who was killed here. Maybe it will become clear elsewhere. Okay, and then at any rate, Moshe then gives this interesting statement, which is a bit difficult to parse. But basically, what he's saying is that you've even killed your own sons and your own brothers. Even you even went against your own sons and your own brothers if they did this horrible, committed this horrible crime against Yehovah, and this has somehow brought blessing upon you. All right, let's go on to verse 30 here. That Aaron in verse 4 actually formed the calf by use of a mold or cloth. I don't see any indication there that it would be a cloth. So the word nesech or masecha. We saw comes from the word nesech, which means to pour, right? And we see that it was gold that was taken, right? So the only way really to deal with all of those gold earrings would be to melt it down and pour it into a mold. And masecha means to pour. So I think the evidence here would be, Yaseu egel masecha would be a molten calf, is the way I would translate it, okay? Or molded calf, right? It's molded gold. It's gold that's poured into a mold. So I don't see what cloth has to do with it unless they use somehow cloth for a mold. But at any rate, that would seem to be the implication there. Okay. So, alrighty, where were we? We were in Exodus 30. Moshe intercedes for Israel. God, this is a big parsha. Not even halfway through. We're about halfway through. ויהי ממחרת ויאמר משה אל העם אתם חטאתם חטאה גדולה ועתה אל יהוה אולי אכפרה בעד חטאתכם. So it's not over yet. Okay, so Moshe still feels he needs to atone. He needs to seek atonement for their sins. The killing Moshe's. So what happened? Remember, Moshe begs God not to destroy Israel. God agrees. Levi, the Levites, have now gone out and killed 3,000 people, but it's still not enough. Now Moshe has to go up and ask for forgiveness, basically, or achparah, for atonement, which literally, as we've said many times in these studies, comes from the underlying root chafar, which means to cover over. So basically, Moshe is looking to have God forget the whole incident. Let's just forget that ever happened. Okay, that's the whole idea of Yom Kippurim. We're asking God to forget our bad sins, to cover over his eyes and forget. Okay, verse 31. V'yashav Moshe el Yehovah. So Moshe returned to Yehovah. V'yomer ana chata ha'am hazeh chata'a gedola v'yasu lehem Elohei zahav. Moshe goes back and states the obvious, but for a reason, right? It's kind of an introductory sentence. V'ata im Tisa hatatam im ein mahainina misif recha asher katavta. Okay. I'm going to take a break for 5 minutes. I just want to drink a little bit of water and just rest my voice. So I think I'm going to put on music for about 5 minutes, and then we will continue. So let's see how we do this here. How do we do history? We'll put on this lovely Moroccan music again. All right, we'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes, about 7 minutes or so.
شاشي عم يوفر عمري روايتي وأراض الدنيا وأخافك كيفك ما تكمس وعيونك وعريضا وعقيل من الناس نقيم وعريضا وعقيل من الناس نقيم أرضنا في تشاشي عم يوفر خيلو عمري نزوايتي مع نار الدنيا وأخذك كيفك ما تكنس وعيونك أعرفها وعطيه لا تسليه
Okay, so welcome back. We're back. I'm sorry, it took 2 minutes longer than I thought. Well, I needed just a little bit of a break, just a drink, and oh, my battery's about to go dead. 1 second. Give it another minute. Sorry about that. All right, I just got to plug in the computer here. It takes 1 second. And then we'll get right back into the study. Oops, where'd the port go? This goes on. This goes in. Okay, computer's plugged in. 1 more second, please. So grab a bit of water, and we're back in business. Okay. So, alrighty, that's that. Let's go on with the study. Goodbye. Alrighty. So we'll go for about another, I don't know, half an hour to an hour, something like that. Yeah. So much to cover in this parsha. Okay, so we were up to here. So Moses still wants to intercede for Israel. And we'll start again in verse 31 here. Vayeshav Moshe el Yehovah. Okay, no, in verse 32. I have to reshare the screen. 1 second. There we go. So verse 32. Wa'ata im tisa hatatam Wa'im in mahinina misifracha asher katavta. Okay. So either forgive their sin, or if not, mahinina misifracha asher katavta. If not, erase me from this book which you have written, which you wrote. This is the past tense or the perfect tense, implying that it's already done. So what book are we talking about? Well, we saw earlier, was it Exodus 30, I believe? I don't remember where it was now. Oh, I know how to find it. Exodus 29. I can't find it right now. Incense. Maybe it was here. Here it is. Wait a second. Nope. I can't remember where it was now, so let's do it this way. Oops. No. Yeah, one second. לוחות אבן כתובים באצבע אלוהים. Was it Exodus 24? I believe it's Exodus 24. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Okay, so yeah, so Exodus 24. This is 24:4. Let's go back to verse 3. So Exodus 24:3. ויבוא משה ויספר לעם את כל דברי יהוה ואת כל המשפטים. יען כל העם כל אחד ויאמרו כל הדברים אשר דיבר יהוה נעשה. Okay. ויכתוב משה את כל דברי יהוה וישכם בבוקר ויבן מזבח תחת ההר ו12 מצבה ל12 שבטי ישראל. So is that the one I was looking for? I'm not sure if that's the one I was looking for. Let's do it this way. If not, I'll just skip it. כך ספר הברית ויקרא. So this is having to do with Amalek. Exodus 24:7. So it is in Exodus 24. Oops. All right, let's go there again. Let's try to make some sense out of this. So Exodus 24:7, ויקח ספר הברית ויקרא באזני העם ויאמרו כל אשר דיבר יהוה נעשה ונשמע. So this is after the giving of the 10 commandments. And this is all of the various laws. But let's start in 1. ואל משה אמר עלי אל יהוה אתה ואהרון נדב ואביהו ו70 מזקני ישראל והשתחוויתם מרחוק. Verse 2, וניגש משה לבדו אל יהוה והם לא ייגשו והעם לא יעלו עמו ויבוא משה ויספר לעם כל דברי יהוה ואת כל המשפטים ויען כל העם כל אחד ויאמרו בלה 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 ויכתוב משה את כל דברי יהוה וישכם בבוקר ויבן מזבח תחת ההר. So Moshe wrote down all of these things. Which things? It would seem the laws that were given in the previous verse, in the previous chapters. Okay. And verse 7, ויקח ספר הברית, יקרא באזני העם, יאמרו כל אשר דיבר יהוה נעשה ונשמע. So Moshe took the Sefer HaBrit, the book of the covenant. So what is the Sefer HaBrit? קח משה את הדם, ויזרוק על העם, יאמר, הנה דם הברית אשר כרת יהוה עמכם על כל הדברים האלה. Well, it couldn't be the tablets because the tablets weren't given until later, right? So what is the Sefer HaBrit? Well, it's not clear because the word Sefer, as we saw, only occurs once before. Well, it occurs in Genesis, but in Exodus it only occurs once before, and this is speaking about Amalek, and that's not Sefer HaBrit. So I don't know. I don't want to get sidetracked, but this really requires a study in and of itself. What was written down, when it was written down, and even then it's not so clear. At any rate, Moshe says to God, if you don't forgive these people, erase me from the book which you have written. Is this the same thing as Sefer HaBrit? If so, what is the Sefer HaBrit? It's not really clear. All right, let's see what Robert Alter might say. Okay. Although most modern translators prefer to represent Sefer as scroll or record, the word also sometimes means book in biblical Hebrew. Its regular sense in post-biblical Hebrew. And various ancient Near Eastern peoples registered belief in a celestial book in which the fates of humankind were inscribed. Okay, so the codex format of the book had not yet been invented, but a text written on a scroll could nevertheless be conceptualized as a book. So it's not like pages in a book, it's a scroll, but it represents a book, entire book. The entire exchange between Moses and God looks suspiciously like a duplication, in part contradictory of verses 9 through 13. God offered to make Moses the beginning of a new people after the destruction of all the Israelites. Here Moses asks for death if God will not forgive Israel, and God replies that he will exact retribution only from the offenders. Okay, well, that doesn't really add much to it, but we do see that it's not clear. The commentary of Robert Alter makes it clear that it's not clear what this book is. Is there one book? Are there a number of different books? I don't think we should get into it now because it'll just take us down a path that's going to be too long to deal with. But at any rate, Moshe asks to be erased. Be erased from this book. Okay. ויאמר יהוה אל משה מי אשר חטא לי אמחנו מספרי. And Yehovah says to Moshe, he who has sinned, I will erase him from my book. Well, why would all the names of people who sinned be in this book anyway? So this now goes back to Robert Alter's commentary, okay, of a celestial book in which the fates of humankind were inscribed. So if we understand that, if we understand it that way, then this doesn't mean Moshe's name should be erased from the Torah. It means that this book is being referred to as some kind of a book of life and death, right? Like Sefer HaChaim v'Hamavet. What the rabbis basically say is your name is written down on Rosh Hashanah and then sealed on Yom Kippur, right? The rabbis believe that each year there's this book of life and death that seals the fate of the person for the coming year. Either he's inscribed in the book of life or he's inscribed in the book of death, and that this would somehow be the same kind of book. It would seem to me that based on verse 33, that God says to Moshe, I'll erase from my book those who sinned against me, that maybe this interpretation is right. Not that the rabbis are right, that every year a book of life and death is written and sealed, but that this is kind of a metaphor for just kill me off, right? Macheni nami sifrecha, it might imply just, kill me. Okay, if you're not going to forgive these people, then just kill me. That this sifrecha is a metaphor, or macheni nami sifrecha is literally means from your, as Robert Alter says, this kind of celestial book of life and death, which doesn't mean that it actually existed, but that it just could be a metaphor. Right? It could be using that metaphor, right? All right, let's go on. Verse 34. Lech nachay et ha'am el asher dibarti lach, v'hinei malachi yelech lifanecha b'yom pakti upakadati alehem hatatam. So then, basically, Yahweh says to Moshe that he forgives them in the sense that he's only going to erase or kill off those people who sinned, and then so basically God accedes to Moshe's request and says, "Okay, I'll forgive him. I'm not gonna kill off the entire nation. I'm not gonna punish the entire nation. Only those who sinned." Okay, but then again, it seems above that 3,000 people were killed, so they were already killed off. Also, it seems above, and Robert Alter alluded to this, right? That Moshe already interceded on behalf of his sins, right? Remember, he gave the argument about what Egypt will say if they find out that you killed off your people in the desert. So Robert Alter pointed out that this is a repetition, and it does kind of seem like a repetition, but I don't think that's what's going on here. I think that it's here Moshe is asking not to destroy the entire nation. Okay, then action is taken to somehow punish those who were responsible for the golden calf. Then Moshe goes back, and now he wants full forgiveness, right? He doesn't mention anything about wiping out the nation here, right? That's already been settled. It seems here that Moshe now wants forgiveness. He doesn't want the entire nation to be punished in another way, right? They've already been punished enough. And so Moshe is now asking for something more than before. He's not just asking for God to spare the nation, but he's asking for, forgiveness. Like, let's close this issue. And here God seems to agree to that, to accede to that, because he says, go back to your duties. Let's get this people over to the land of Israel, right? Verse 34. Now go lead these people to the place to that which I spoke to you about, to the place which I spoke to you about, meaning land of Israel. My angel will go before you, and we'll get back to this in the next chapter. And when I choose, basically, I will punish those. I will punish those who've sinned for their sins. Right? Literally, b'yom pakti, on the day that I revisit, or the day that I visit, or the day that I take revenge. Pakati aleim hatatam. I will take revenge upon aleim hatatam. I will take revenge, or I will visit their sin upon them. I will visit their sin upon them. I will take revenge upon them for their sin. Vayigof Yehovah et am al asher asu et ha'egel asher asa Aaron. And he brought a plague, or he, what would be a better translation? He brought a plague upon the people who had done the calf, who were responsible for the calf that Aaron had made. So it's kind of difficult to understand what's going on, because already the Levites had killed off 3,000 people. So I guess they didn't kill off all the people who were responsible for the calf, or who had prayed to the calf. And so now perhaps Yehovah is taking care of the rest of them through a plague. At any rate, it seems at this point that the issue is now more or less closed. The golden calf incident is over. Yehovah wants Moshe to go upon his merry way and lead the people to Israel. but there have been a number of punishments, right? So first of all, the tablets were broken. Second of all, Moshe convinces God not to wipe out the entire nation. Third of all, he pounds the golden calf into dust and makes them drink it. Fourth of all, the Levites kill off 3,000 people. Now Moshe goes up again and asks for total forgiveness, or asks for the issue to be closed. God says, okay, I'll punish those who were responsible. And then a plague is brought upon those who are responsible. And that somehow closes the issue, okay? Alrighty. That brings us to chapter 33. Any questions, any comments? Would anyone like to say anything or add anything? Anybody? And I'm going to have to look into this Eitz Chaim Chumash. I don't even know what that is. Actually, let me look it up right now. That's 1985 JPS. Okay. Whoa. Rabbinical Assembly. The books. Special features make Eitz Chaim meaningful for lay and clergy alike. Essays on key themes by prominent conservative movement rabbis and scholars. Separate Peshat and Drash commentary themes showing two approaches to interpreting the Torah. The Peshat commentary adopted from the JPS Torah commentary, edited by Chaim Potok, seems to explain. Okay, I got the idea. So this is a conservative, right? JPS is conservative. So this is a JPS 1985 translation. Okay. Interesting. Let's see. Oh, there it is. PDF. Download PDF. No. Okay. Another second here. Scribd. It's a reliable source. Okay. 2 pages. That doesn't make any sense. All right, I'll play around with this later, but I will definitely try to look into that. Okay. Alrighty. So all right, so we are now in Exodus chapter 33. We'll go for about another half an hour or so, and then I'm going to end the study. וידבר יהוה אל משה לך עלי מזה אתה והעם אשר העלית מארץ מצרים. So Yehovah says, go you, and again this phrase, and the nation which you, the people which you brought out of the land of Egypt, אל הארץ אשר נשבעתי לאברהם, ליצחק ליעקב, לאמור לזרעך אתננה. Okay, so basically, it's time to move on. But they don't move on quite yet. שלחתי לפניך מלאך וגירשתי את הכנעני, האמורי, החיתי, הפריזי והחיובי, היבוסי אל ארץ זבת חלב ודבש, כי לא אעלה בקרבך, כי עם קשה עורף אתה פן אכלך בדרך. So now God is basically saying, I'm done. I'm out of here. Okay, these people are too much for me. I can't deal with them. I'm going to send like an angel in my place. Okay? I'm not doing this directly. So So how was God leading the people? Remember, he was in the cloud, the pillar of clouds by day and the pillar of fire at night. Cat is on the table. Suf, off the table. Sufi, off the table. Yeah, close enough. All right. Okay, at any rate, I got to get the cat off it because she's going to open the window. No, I've got the pickles there and everything. You'll let her out. Suf, out. Get out of there. Go. Okay. Yeah, I know. We're reinforcing that behavior, but what can you do? Okay, so so the Israelites were being led by God, who was in a pillar of clouds during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Remember that from the Exodus story, from the end of the Exodus story. But at the same time, if I remember correctly, it also says that the angel moved from the front to the back. I think there was another incident there. Let's go back to that. Let's explore this the right way. So that's going to be in about, let's see, Exodus 12 is Passover. 13, it's going to be around 14 or so. Yeah. Okay, so let's grab it in English just so I can skim through it and everyone can see. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for here. I'll just read the English to save a little bit of time. So Exodus 14:19, then the angel of God who had been traveling in front of Israel's army withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other. Let's go back a little bit earlier. Yeah. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light so they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. So we have here the Lord, which in Hebrew would be Yehovah, who's in the cloud. But then we have, as we saw in Exodus 14, the angel of God who had been traveling in front of Israel's army withdrew and went behind them. 1 second here. One second. So I think that's the first two mentions of the pillar of cloud, pillar and the fire pillar. Yeah, this is still in Egypt here. So God is, so we see here in chapter 13, right, that God is in the pillar of cloud and in the pillar of fire at night, right? And here it says that the angel, here, verse 19, then the angel of God who had been traveling in front of Israel's army withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. So is this angel in the cloud? Is God in the cloud directly? We've spoken about before how really it seems that Yehovah doesn't interact directly with anybody on earth, that he interacts through an angel, except with the possible exception of speaking to Moshe. And so often angel of God, Malach, Yehovah, and Yehovah are used interchangeably, sometimes in the same, not sometimes, and in the same story. So is this referring to God inside the pillar of cloud, who then moves from the front to the back of Israel? Or is this referring to another angel that stands outside the pillar of cloud? And when the pillar of cloud moves from the front to the back, it's really Yehovah's essence or some higher level angel moving behind. It's not so clear. But at any rate, let's go back to where we were. Oops. But at any rate, but God is saying here, I'm not going to do this directly. I'm saying setting an angel, but it already seems like there was an angel in the pillar of cloud, right? So is this a lower level angel? Maybe that could be the explanation. V'shalachti lefanecha malach v'gereshti et kanani blah blah blah. Ki lo a'ale b'kirbecha. I will not go up among you. Ki am kashe orafata, because you're a stiff-necked nation. So God's basically saying, I'm out of here. I'm sending my assistant. I'm sending an angel to do this job because I don't want to be around you stiff-necked people anymore. That's what it would seem. So if there were a higher level angel in there, then now maybe it's being replaced with a lower level angel. Let's take a look. It is not the gods that the people wanted Aaron to make for them that will go before them, but as stipulated earlier in the story, God's messenger. That messenger, we should recall, is not only a guide, but an inexorable and rather menacing monitor of the people's behavior. Okay. This is 34. 1 second here. All right. Okay. So we really want Exodus 33. So Exodus 33. Let's go look at the commentary on that one. Right. Okay. Go up and my messenger will go before you, but don't expect me to go up with you. All right. So I'm going to go with some kind of lower level angel. That a higher level angel, which is, a direct intercedent between, which basically represents God, which the word God can be used interchangeably, or the word Yehovah can be used interchangeably with such an angel, is now being replaced by a lower level angel who's not like a direct representative of Yehovah. Something along those lines. Again, speculating, but that's the best we can do here. All right. Verse 4, Yishma am et davar hara hazeh. So the nation heard this bad news, V'yitablu, and they mourned. They mourned. V'lo shatu ish edio alau. So nobody put their jewelry on. Ornaments. Right. So Adi, this also happens to be a common female Israeli name. Adi means ornaments. Women's ornaments. Proverbs. Ade beged bayom. Okay. All right. So adi is translated as ornaments. Not a very common word in modern Hebrew, but a common name, adi. At any rate, so ish edio, so no person, so basically nobody, after that, nobody wanted to wear jewelry. It was like a state of mourning, just as you would not wear jewelry if you were in mourning. So they did not want to wear jewelry. They were in mourning that God had basically said he's going to abandon them and send some kind of low-level angel instead. Vayomer Yehovah el Moshe, emor el bnei Israel, atem am kashe oref. So Yehovah said to Moses, say to the children of Israel, you are a stiff-necked nation. Am kashe oref. So what's going on here? It's kashe oref. So really, we know that in Hebrew, the adjective follows a noun, but here it comes before am kashe oref. So when it's an expression, that could change, right? The adjective can go before the noun, and actually it comes basically in the smichut, in the I think they call it the conjunctive in English. Basically the conjunctive form, where it's kind of tied to the word oref. So it's not kashe, it's kashe oref. And let's see again if any of the commentators pick up on that one. So 5. Okay. Alrighty, not much there. Okay, at any rate, am kashe oref. So stiff-necked people. And let's just see how Everett Fox translates that one. Verse 5. So this is 33:5. Hard-necked people. Let me just take a look at something for myself. Oops. Okay. Rega had. So rega in modern Hebrew is a moment. You'll hear it all the time. You ever go to Israel? So it seems to have the same meaning in biblical Hebrew. Again, when I know a word from modern Hebrew, I always like to just check the meaning because it could mean something different in biblical Hebrew. She'oref rega had achale otam karaga, achale otam karaga, imat rega haytat tichina in Ezra. So yeah, it seems to have the same meaning. Hanef ade raga in biblical Hebrew. Okay, so basically, this is a stiff-necked people in any moment. Ale bekir becha v'kiliticha. So this is what Moshe wants. This is what Yoah wants Moshe to tell the people. Okay, you're a stiff-necked people, and in any moment, I could come up and destroy you. I'm tempted to come up and destroy you. I would translate that as. Adecha me'alecha ve'ed'a ma e'aseh lecha, ma aseh lach. And now take your ornaments off of you, and I will figure out what I will do to you. Okay, so as Robert Alto points out, they'd already taken off their ornaments, but I guess now God makes it a commandment, or he kind of confirms that what they're doing is the right thing. Okay, so they're kind of in permanent mourning at this point, right? And I'll decide what I'm going to do to you. Okay, so God is basically putting them on the in the warning box, right, in the penalty box, and saying, you're in trouble now. I got my eye on you. Okay, ויתנצלו בני ישראל את עדים מהר חורב. So the children of Israel from that point on, from Har Chorev, did not wear any more jewelry, it would seem. Mehar Chorev, right? And that's Robert Alter also gives that interpretation. We can read that again. Richard Elliott Friedman, whoever that is. Oh, maybe I should look him up as a potential second commentary. Okay. Huh. Okay, another Bible commentator. All right, we'll take a look at that. Okay, so רגע אחד יעלה בקרבך וכילית ואתה הורד עדיך מעליך ואדעה מה אעשה לך. This may be a play on words. Okay, עדיך ואדעה מה אעשה לך. Torah often uses plays on words. So we have here, אתה הורד עדיך מעליך. Take off your ornaments. עדיך ואדעה, right? You could see the same, well, it's reversed. Here it's dalid ayin. Here it's ayin dalid, but similar. Could be a play on words. What I'm going to do, and from that, from Har Chorev, it would seem they no longer wore any jewelry. Okay. So they're in mourning, and the not wearing of jewelry represents mourning. Right? They're in a permanent state of mourning. Okay. We'll go a little bit longer, then we'll stop. Another 10 minutes or so. Moshe ייקח את האוהל ונטע לו מחוץ למחנה, הרחק מן המחנה וקרא לו אוהל מועד, והכל מבקש יהוה יצא אל אוהל מועד אשר מחוץ למחנה. So now Moshe takes his let me just see one thing here. Right, so it would seem to imply here, האוהל ונטע לו מחוץ למחנה והרחק מן המחנה, קרא לו אוהל מועד, והיה כל מבקש יהוה יצא אל אוהל מועד של מחוץ למחנה. So Moshe takes the camp, the Ohel Moed, but we see already that the Ohel Moed let's take a look at this here in Exodus 27, 21. So what is this Ohel Moed? ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל ולך שמן זית זך כתית למאור להעלות נר תמיד, ואוהל מועד מחוץ לפרוכת אשר על העדות יערוך אותו אהרון ובניו מערב עד בוקר לפני יהוה חוקת עולם לדורותם מאת בני ישראל. So here we have the oil for the lamps, and this is in, so where's this lamp oil moed michutz laparochet? It's in the tent of meeting outside of the covering or the veil that covers the curtain that covers the Ark of the Covenant. Let's look again. Exodus 28:43. Let's do this actually for the heck of it. So, right, 28:43. You'll see where I'm going with this in a second. והיו על אהרון ועל בניו בבואם אל אוהל מועד או בגישתם אל המזבח שרת בקודש ולא יישאו עוון ומתו חוקת עולם לו ולזרעו אחריו. So the Ohel Moed is one second. Just one second here. Right, so it would seem that this is the Ohel Moed. This tent right here, which contains the Holy of Holies, which in turn contains the Ark of the Covenant. So when it says here in Exodus 33, where were we? Then Moshe, so he took the Moshe kach et ha'oel v'natalo michutz lamachaneh. He takes the Ohel Moed and he plants it outside of the camp. Harchek min ha'machaneh v'kara lo Ohel Moed. But we've already heard, why does it say v'kara lo Ohel Moed? We already see the phrase Ohel Moed, Ohel Moed. But at any rate, it seems that Moshe, if we're talking about the tabernacle, then the tabernacle, Moshe now moves the tabernacle outside the camp. It's almost as if he wants to distance himself from Israel as well, right? God has already, Yehovah has already said, I'm not leading you. I'm sending a lower level angel to lead you. And the people mourned and they took off the jewelry. And now it's almost, Moshe takes the Ohel Moed, which might be the entire tabernacle, and moves it outside of the camp. I think we should just go on and see how it plays out here. ויקצת משה אל האוהל, יקומו כל העם ניצבו איש פתח אוהלו, והביטו אחרי משה עד בואו האוהלה. So the people would stand up as Moshe came into the tent. ויקבו משה האוהלה, ירד עמוד הענן ועמד פתח האוהל. So then the pillar of cloud would come down and stand at the position itself at the opening of the tent. ודיבר עם Moshe. And God spoke with Moshe. Is the implied subject there. וראה כל העם את עמוד הענן עומד פתח האוהל וקם כל העם והשתחוו איש פתח אוהלו. So when the cloud came down, the entire nation bowed down before their own tents. ודיבר יהוה אל משה פנים אל פנים. So in this pillar of cloud, so this is the same pillar of cloud that was leading the Israelites. So now it's not leading the Israelites perhaps, and just a lower level angel is leading the Israelites, but this pillar of cloud is still in the picture and is coming down to the Ohel Moed, which Moshe has now moved outside of the camp. He's moved the entire tabernacle, it would seem, outside of the camp, and Yehovah is coming down in this pillar of cloud to speak to Moshe, but is not leading the people with this pillar of cloud. דיבר יהוה אל משה פנים אל פנים, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe face to face, כאשר ידבר איש אל רעהו, as a person speaks to his bosom buddy, ושב אל המחנה, ומשרתו יהושע בן נון נער לא ימיש מתוך האוהל. And he returned to the camp, meaning Moshe. But Yoshua would never leave the tent. So Yeshua is a good assistant. All right. Right. So here, this is what I want to look at. So Robert Alter says he called it the tent of meeting. Elsewhere, this designation was synonymous with the tabernacle. But here, there is no question of erecting that elaborate structure, but rather of Moses pitching his own tent outside the camp and making it serve as a tent of meeting, a place where God meets or encounters Moses as Israel's spokesman. Ibn Ezra proposes with an eye to the iterative character of the passage that Moses has placed the second set of tablets of the law in this tent. The tent itself is located outside the camp because Israel, after the Golden Camp, is deemed unworthy to have God's meeting place with them inside the camp. So basically, Robert Alter is saying that this is separate from the tabernacle. That's Moses' own tent, and that's also called, or that's called the Ohel Moed. That would make more sense in the context here. And maybe, by the way, I should also add Ibn Ezra, if I can get his entire commentary. And Karaite leaning. Better than Rashi, that's for sure. Okay, so it would seem that this Ohel Moed, is now referring not to the tabernacle, right? But is referring to Moshe's own tent where this pillar came down. But why would they use the same word, Ohel Moed, and the Ohel Moed? Kind of strange. I won't even bother with Rashi here because I don't want to be thrown off the scent of what's really going on. So let's stick with Robert Alter's explanation for a second. So now there's two Ohel Moeds. One is Moshe. He takes his tent. He says, I'm out of here too. God doesn't want to lead these people. I don't want anything to do with these people. I'm not going to stay inside the camp. I'm moving my personal tent, not the tabernacle, but my personal tent outside of the camp. And that's where God is going to meet with me. And that's the Ohel Moed. So where's the tabernacle? It's still in the middle of the camp? I guess so. And so two things are, so Ohel Moed refers to two things. Number one, the tabernacle, the Mishkan. And number two, Moses' tent where he meets with God and where Yeshua stays the whole time. Okay. So this is Exodus 33. And maybe we'll just read through. I'm getting a bit tired. It's been a long study. It's been over 3 hours now. So we'll just go through to the end of 33, I think. ויאמר משה אל יהוה ראה אתה אומר אלי העל את העם הזה ואתה לא הודעתני את אשר תשלח עמי ואתה אמרת ידעתיך בשם וגם מצאת חן בעיניי, ואתה אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך הודעני נא את דרכיך את דעך למען נמצא חן בעיניך וראה כי עמך הגוי הזה. So Moshe has a request. So in verse 12, ויאמר משה אל יהוה ראה אתה אומר אלי העל את העם הזה, you said to me, bring these people up to the land. אתה לא הודעתני את אשר תשלח עמי, but you have not let me know who you're going to send with me. ואתה אמרת ידעתיך בשם וגם מצאת חן בעיניי. But you've said to me, I know you by name. This is Moshe speaking to God. God said, You have said, you, God, have said, you know me by name. And I am also pleasing to you. You also like me. Verse 13, if indeed you like me, show me your ways. And so that I should know you, in order that I shall find, and in order that you shall like me, or maybe the better translation there would be that you continue to like me, you like me even more. Or you said you like me, but now let's make it happen. Let me make sure that you like me, and by show me your ways, so that you'll like me even more. I guess would be the way to look at it. Yomer panai yerachu v'hanichoti lach. And he said, literally, shall go. Lead you. So I guess what's second. Uh-huh. Interesting. So, if my presence were to easy, teen, and so compact that the whole sentence is only 4 words. In this translation, my presence shall go and I will grant you rest. Here's the cryptic effect. Presumably, what God is telling Moses is that he will indeed go before the people through the wilderness and thus lighten Moses' burden, grant you rest. Alternatively, the verb could refer to, according to the biblical idiom, to giving Moses or the people rest from their enemies when they enter the land. But God, scarcely willing to concede that he himself will lead the people, words the response so laconically, whatever the heck that means, I used to know, but I think I forgot. Suppressing the clarifying before you after my presence shall go, that Moses is by no means sure what God means. And so he goes on to say, if your presence does not go, do not take us up from here. He then stipulates, verse 16, that is only through God's presence among the Israelites as they journey onward that his own favored status before God can be confirmed, and the election of Israel as well. And all this, it should be noticed that presence and face are the same Hebrew word, panim. Okay, so let's go see what Robert Alter is talking about. So my presence shall go and put you to rest. So the two interpretations that we saw are either make you rest easy or bring you to rest in the land. I tend to think it's the second one. But at any rate, what God is telling Moshe, I think, is that God is going to lead Moshe and Moshe will lead the people. That's the way I understand it. In other words, God is not going to lead the people directly anymore through the cloud, the pillar of cloud, but the pillar of cloud still is descending on Moshe's tent, which is now outside of the camp. So God will descend in the pillar of cloud, leading Moshe, but and then Moshe will lead the people. But God doesn't want to deal directly with these people anymore because they're too stubborn. They're too problematic. That's my take on it. Verse 15, Vayomer elav im en panecha horchim al ta'aleni mizeh. And if your presence or your face doesn't go, then don't take me up from this, don't take me up from here. In other words, I'm not going anywhere. Okay? So either you lead me or I'm not going anywhere. Moshe says back to God. Bameh wada efo ki matzati chaim b'einecha ani ve'amecha halo belechtacha imanu ve'niflenu ani ve'amcha mikol ha'am asher al pnei adama. Okay. So then Moshe goes on to say, how shall it be known indeed that I've found that you like me? Ani ve'amecha halo belechtacha imanu. how should it be known that you like me if indeed, except if you, menecha ani ve'amecha. Okay, I'll retranslate it. How shall it be known that you like me and this people? If you do not, unless you go with us. And niflenu. So let's see how that's translated by. Okay, if your presence does not go, do not bring us up from here. For wherein, after all, is it to be known that I found favor in your eyes, I and your people? Is it not precisely in that you go with us and that we are distinct, I and your people, from every people that is on the face of the soil? So niflenu, Everett Fox translates as distinct. Let's take a look at this for a second. Right. So we saw in Exodus 8:22, ifleti. Right. Okay. So basically what Moshe is saying, so Moshe is really pressing God. So Moshe got God now to not destroy the people. And then he got atonement for the people and got God to agree basically to bury the entire incident of the golden calf, but only punish those who had partaken in the golden calf. But he said, I'm not leading these people anymore. I'm done with you people, all right? But now Moshe's now coming back. So what's going on here is Moshe's now coming back and basically saying to God, you have to, I'm not going anywhere unless you lead us, okay? He said before, Moshe said before, if you're going to do anything to these people, erase me from your book, kill me. And now he's saying, I ain't going nowhere unless you lead us. And now God actually accedes to that. And that's what's going on in these two paragraphs. So let's look at it again. ויאמר משה אל יהוה ראה אתה אומר אלי העל את העם הזה ואתה לא הודעתני את אשר תשלח עמי. So now we can see it in its full context, right? So we know that up here, God basically said, I will not lead you anymore, right? We saw that earlier. But now Moshe doesn't like that answer. So Moshe is going to force God to renege on that punishment and lead Israel. And that's exactly what's going on in these two paragraphs. V'yomer Moshe el Yehovah, we're in verse 12. Re'eh ata omer elai ha'al et ha'am hazeh ve'ata lo hodatani et asher tishlach imi. You want me to bring these people up, but you haven't told me who you're going to send with me. And you said you're not doing it anymore. You're done. You quit. Well, who are you going to send to help me lead these people up? Right? Although he did say earlier that he's going to send an angel. Right? We saw that earlier. But I guess Moshe hasn't met this angel. He doesn't know this angel yet. So, and you said, I know you by name. This is now Moshe speaking to God. God, you said, I know you by name, and I like you. Okay, I found pleasure. I found grace in your eyes. You have found grace in my eyes, right? So Moshe is saying, you told me you know me by name and you like me. And if indeed you like me, verse 13, show me your ways. Let me know your ways. Okay? Let me know your ways so I should know in order that I can indeed, or that I can continue, or that really I can, you could really like me, or that, I don't know how to express this. I'm trying to find the words in English. I'll say continue, as I said before, that you can really like me or continue to like me, or you can make it true that, that it's not just words, that, I can make sure you really like me. And behold that this nation is your people. So let's get a translation for that one. That's 13. Ways that I make favor in your eyes, see this nation is indeed your people. So he deals with it almost as a separate sentence. Let's see how Robert Alter deals with that one. 13. And see, for this nation is your people. Okay, he also deals with this separate sentence. It's kind of like stuck in there. Okay. There's an etnach there, so that kind of is like a semicolon. And behold, or know, or see that these people are yours. Okay. I think I would like to tie the two together a bit more. Okay. All right, let's move on. And so God says, he said, my presence or my face will go and give you rest. Now, why? A second. So let's see one thing. Okay. All right. Verse 15. So God is now saying, my presence will go before you. Okay. And so Moshe responds, if your presence doesn't go before us, then don't take us out of here. I'm not moving, as we said before, right? But God already said his presence will go. But I guess Moshe really wants to, drill the point home. Are you really sure? He's almost giving him an ultimatum. He's not almost, he is giving him an ultimatum. And then Moshe says it even more. Okay, well, God already said, so it's kind of like God says to Moshe, okay, my presence will go before you. And Moshe says, okay, make sure that's the case, because I'm not moving unless that's the case. Okay, and not only that, okay, how would I know that you really like me? Ani ve'amecha, me and your people, how would you know? How would I know? How would it be known that you really like me and your people? If you do not go before us, or you do not go with us, and thereby make a difference, make a distinction between your people and all of the people on the face of the earth. So basically, Moshe is pressing God to commit the promise, even though he said he can't stand these people anymore. He doesn't want anything to do with them. He's not going to go with them. Moshe is now basically pressing God to renege or relent on that punishment and agree that he's going to go, or else he's not moving. All right. And we'll finish it off with these couple of verses. Verse 17, ויאמר יהוה אל משה גם את הדבר הזה אשר דיברתי אעשה, כי מצאת חן בעיניי ואדעך בשם. And then Yahweh says to Moshe, this, I will also grant this thing, because I like you, and I know you by name. So God agrees. ויאמר הריני נא את כבודך, and then Moshe pushes it a little bit further. It seems like there's a common theme among, these people who are close to God, is they're not afraid to push God to the limits, but they also kind of know when to stop as well. So show me your glory. Yomer ani avir kol tuvi al panecha. So God says, I will pass all my goodness before you. Vekarati b'shem Yehovah lefanecha, and I shall call out in the name of Yehovah before you. So God is going to call out in his own name, and and I will be kind to those who I choose to be kind to, and I will be merciful to those who I choose to be merciful to. Is that referring to the ones who were responsible for the golden calf, or those who were not responsible for the golden calf, or is it a general statement? I'll leave that as a question mark. And he said, you cannot see my face because a person, I like to translate this as a person cannot see me while he's alive. And a man cannot see me while he's alive. Although it's usually understood as a person who sees me will no longer live. In other words, if you see me, you'll die. Verse 21, V'yomer Yehovah, Hine makom iti when hitzavta al tzur. There's a place nearby me, and you shall be placed, or you shall stand upon a rock. V'haya be'avor kivodi, and as my glory passes by, v'samticha be'nikra atzur, I will place you in the nook. I think it's usually translated as Rosh Hanikra. Let's see how they translate it here. Nook, the cranny, the cleft. Hatzur sakonti kapai alecha. Sakoti kapai alecha. Same word as sukkah. No, I'm sorry, sukkah is with a samech, not with a sin. So I will cover my hand over you ad avri, until I pass by. Vasiroti et kapai v'ra'ita et achorai v'panai lo yera'u. And I will then remove my hand, and you'll see my back. And I remember we used to learn in Hebrew school as children that you see the tefillin straps hanging down or something like that. I don't know. It's been a while. Whatever. Upanai lo yera'u, but my face cannot be seen. Okay, so Moshe, God agrees to somehow show the kind of the footsteps of his glory. Okay, we're going to end here. It's a long parsha, a lot to say, but I think the time has come to end the study. I appreciate all of you who came to the study. If there are any questions or comments, please ask them now. If not, we'll end. And I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov. See you all soon.